Let's do the damn thing.
Oh, you know what time it is. It's time to take it to the Birdland. It's about to go down. Hope y'all ready. Yeah, let's go. Come and roll with me to the Birdland. Friends got to giving you the word, man. Any other BS is absurd, man. Sports talking, they give it to you firsthand. They can talk Terps, they can talk O's. Yeah, they both lit. That's how it goes. Baltimore squad, Ravens and Poe. Better tune in. Here comes the show. Birdland, Birdland, Birdland. BS. Birdland, Birdland, Birdland. BS.
It's all about that BS, baby.
BS is right. What is up, BSers? Fred, Scott, Ryan, James, and Drew all in the house tonight. A little somber, a little depressed.
Apparently lucky the two of you made it here.
Yeah, right. It's been a rough couple days. Dr. Donahue, Dr. Foster back in the office today. Come in, take your shoes off, make yourself comfortable.
Should we really be making that when there's actually nurses in the room?
I guess that's true.
Nah, it's fine.
There's people that actually paid for the degree in the room and worked their ass off for a degree. How you guys feeling out there? This is another therapy session 2.0 for you guys.
We're going to do this again.
Yeah, I know.
I heard they're giving honorary doctorates out in Tennessee if you guys want to get this taken care of.
Gotta go online to Phoenix University.
Yeah.
Get my degree. Yeah, so we're going to keep this show light. We're going to open it up to you. We're going to really Ryan's going to try to monitor the chat room, get all your comments, get all your frustrations out, any questions that you guys have that you want us to kind of give our spin on, our take on, our analysis, because we got to talk about this Bills game, and we are, because the Ravens just didn't execute, missed some crucial opportunities up there in Buffalo.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to talk about it more, but there's also hats off to Buffalo.
Yeah.
They game planned well. They executed well for the most part. I mean, I got to give them credit. Yeah, the credits. I can't take away credit for what they've done in the year and what they were able to do against, arguably one of the top defenses in the league in the Ravens, and they were still able to get the job done.
So we're going to talk a lot about that. We're also going to take a look back just on what was 2020 and this crazy football season beyond just 2020 being crazy in itself, what this whole season has kind of looked like in a nutshell.
And how 2021 isn't starting out the greatest either.
No, it's not. Then we're going to look at some changes maybe going into the 2021 season. What out there do you guys want to see happen? What free agents do you want to see us bring in? What kind of coaching changes do you want to see happen? Who do you want us to see, maybe some positions that we go after in the draft? We're going to talk a little bit about that. Then obviously we're going to talk about the conference championships that we're not in, unfortunately, but we're going to give our predictions and who do we think we're going to be playing in Super Bowl 55 in Tampa.
The usual. So I think we're split on a few different ones, so we'll talk about that. Let's talk Joe Carlozo. Drew, you have been advised that you are the one who has jinxed Tucker. We're starting off the show like that.
I don't kick the field goals. I don't know what to tell you.
I did, after the second missed field goal, turn to Fred and say, I think Drew might have been right.
In fairness, there were 2 field goal kickers in this game, both of which were 1 for 3 in this game.
Yeah, I love Tucker. I'm not trading him anytime soon, but didn't work out great.
No, it didn't, but that's going to happen when you got 20-mile-an-hour winds. And, both kicks, it wasn't like he missed the broadside of the barn. He hit the post on both of them, but we're going to talk a little bit about that later.
I would have just went for the crossbar on the third.
We do want to remind you, though, if you've ever been injured at work or in an auto accident, weren't sure who to call, 855-MD-CRASH, the Maryland Personal Injury Attorneys that'll have your back. If you find yourself in an unfortunate situation just like I have, give our team at MD Crash a call right away. We all know the cost of medical bills, lost wages, pain and suffering. It can all add up quickly and potentially put you in a bad financial place. If you want a team that'll handle your case, big or small, and just give you some peace of mind, save this number now, 855-MD-CRASH. It's 855-632-7274. Be sure to follow them on Facebook for some fun giveaways, including gift cards to some local restaurants. All right, Scott. So let's first digest this Bills game. which
there wasn't a hold on a second.
Digestion
the word
was an
digest is
issue.
not very good right now because of the two of you and the story that Ryan decided to tell that made me puke before the show just hearing it.
All right.
Like,
full transparency, okay? 2020 has been a cluster, and there hadn't been a whole lot of reasons to get together and drink a whole lot of alcohol. So, it's the Ravens playoff game. Ryan and I and a few other friends get together and had one too many, maybe 10 too many, Ryan. I mean, it was quite a bit.
We both regret. Neither one of us have drank tonight, which is not the norms, if that tells you anything.
90% sure from the story, it sounds like you had alcohol poisoning almost.
I'm pretty sure I did. Full transparency, I don't remember the Ravens game live.
Best part about it is you did not drive home.
No, I didn't.
You stayed at Ryan.
There wasn't. I don't even think I knew my name.
I at 6 a.m. I hid his keys, and I don't think he ever noticed I hid his keys even the next day.
It was so brutal. One of those nights where I was that guy. I'm usually the one taking care of that guy. Nope, it was me this time. Fred is human. Can't handle an abundance of alcohol apparently. So yeah, it was a rough one to swallow. But I did get up the next day, found out the results of the game, and then I had to watch it. So I did because I wasn't doing anything else all day long.
I woke up with about 4 minutes left, so I got to watch the sad ending, but not know how we got there. I'm like, why is Lamar not playing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, let's talk about the game, though. Like I said, for me, I think there were two reasons for losing this game. And it comes down to missed opportunities and just
not field goals, Drew. Missed opportunities.
Field goals were part of it.
I saw you thinking about it.
We'll get to Tucker soon enough.
I'm just making sure.
Poor execution. Things that, like, I guess as fans, we've kind of taken for granted, right? We've talked about it on ends about how efficient Lamar and this offense has been, especially inside the red zone. Lamar hadn't thrown any interceptions in the red zone. Well, he threw his first, and it was a big one. It was a 14-point swing in this game.
Tied for the longest interception return for a touchdown in playoff history.
Yeah, it's
that hurt. That hurt.
Goes 14-24 in a game for 162 yards through the air, and again in 3 quarters of play because he ends up leaving this game early due to the concussion. But again, that interception, that 14-point swing, you lose a game 17-3. There's your 14 points.
Yeah, and people will point at Tucker, and we're going to get into that, but I have to also say, right? Yes, that is the 14. That is the 14 points, and it happens. But it happens because I'm going to give the Bills credit. They were talking about it on the show, and obviously you saw it afterwards. But they talked about it and saying, or during the game, they talked about the fact that the Bills last year kind of showed a little bit of some of the weaknesses and some of the scheming that the Ravens were doing.
Yeah.
And it was very evident in this game because the design run for Lamar, I think he had, one that went past 5 yards,
right?
6 yards. It really wasn't that many.
9 carries for 34 yards. They essentially shut Lamar down on the ground.
Yeah.
They shut the entire ground game down. I know he had 150 total yards, but when J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards are only averaging 4 yards a carry, that's low for them.
Well, and the two of them, I think I didn't look at the overall, but the two of them, I think, only combined for like 10 or 12, right?
They both had identical stats. They both had 10 carries for 42 yards. So it's like 4.2 yards a carry that they were getting, which is extremely low for them. And then you get Lamar with 9 carries for 34 yards. The Bills went all in. They went all in on stopping the run. They knew what the weather conditions were going to be like. They knew the question marks.
A spy on Lamar all game.
Yeah, they knew the question marks with the wind, and obviously there's a lot of people that doubt Lamar's ability to throw outside the numbers and whatnot. So they thought that the Ravens weren't going to throw the ball through the air much, and they sold out on the run. And
that's the thing. That's the thing. Like a lot of people were saying, "Oh, see, Greg Roman needs to do it." No, the problem is Greg Roman still on a half of the runs that Lamar was getting off. They weren't necessarily full scrambles, but it was Lamar scrambling, and he was scrambling too late. Right? We talked about him getting out of the pocket early. He was scrambling too late at times. my big thing with this whole situation, and this is probably going to send us into a tangent because I'm sure a bunch of people are going to be commenting here.
Living legend. Tucker hit the pole twice like exotic dancers. That's exactly right. I love it. That's hilarious.
But Greg Roman is a pain point right now. And I said this during the show, and this is one thing, or during the game, this is one thing that I wanted to bring up on the show. I have a problem with coordinators being up in the booth. I get there is an advantage to it where you get to see the full play out. You can kind of go back and in between possessions, in between drives, you can plan, you can go back, you can look at the video. You know where that's also helpful to do that with? Sitting next to your fucking quarterback who can feed you the information on what he's seeing. The phone stuff, you can't read tone. You can't read body language. It's different.
I agree with that, and I'm sure it has an impact. But regardless of whether he's in the booth or he's down in the field, simple route concepts and terrible passing schemes is just it's going to be the same regardless.
You mean the vanilla offense that Steve Smith referred to, right?
Exactly.
A 6-year-old who was sleeping could run a better offense or could run the scheme that we were running.
Right. Yeah, we're going to talk more about that as well. But yeah, I mean, let's talk Justin Tucker, right? Because as Drew said a couple of weeks ago, he's, especially when it comes to these playoff games lately, he doesn't have the greatest record over the last few playoff games with his accuracy. There's no doubt he's the greatest kicker of all time, right? And he's won a lot of games for us. But these last couple games, granted, 20-mile-an-hour winds, I get it. There's a lot of factors with it.
Let's say wet ground in one game, we saw the slip.
Yep.
This game, you have the 20-mile-an-hour winds that he's trying to compensate for. That the first one, I thought it was going to be good in the left quarter of the uprights. I thought it was going to be good. And you just watch when they show the back end shot, and you're looking at it. It's looking like it's going right down the quarter. It's going to split it quarter of the way, and then all of a sudden it just shoots.
Yeah.
And kicks off. And as soon as you see it shoot, you're kind of like. You're crossing your fingers hoping it's going to get the kick in, right? We're all hoping for when it's hitting the upright. You're hoping it kicks back in.
Right.
And Tucker's surprised.
And it never kicks back in. I don't understand. It's a round pole.
Unless you're the Chicago Bears and somehow it kicks back in.
Never kicks in.
Never 50-50. But it's crazy, though, because what I'm talking about are those missed opportunities, right? The interception in the red zone, right? The two missed field goals. J.K. Dobbins, he's our boy and everything, right? But he whiffs on a huge block that would have been an easy touchdown right before that interception. Those 4 plays, 2 missed field goals, the interception, and the missed block are the absolute difference in this game because Trey Wingo of ESPN pointed this out. The Ravens had more first downs, were better on third down, had more total yards, ran more plays, had 12 more minutes of possession, and still lost. 100-yard turnover and a backup quarterback changed everything.
You want to know why? Because we couldn't finish.
Yeah.
The thing that they've been preaching all year.
Yep.
Finish. And they couldn't do it in this game in big moments. Andrews didn't have drops, but he wasn't involved as much as I thought he was going to be.
Trust me, I had him pegged as the player of the game. I thought he'd have over 100 yards, a touchdown or 2. Sorely disappointed.
Did anybody happen to look and see how many snaps Des Bryant was in there? Because I feel like it was 2.
Yeah, Des Bryant is a point of content that we're going to talk about too. Why we weren't using him.
Joe talking about
Andrews.
Talking about Dobbins. He's talking about Andrews with the 2 drop passes. Is that what he's referencing? Because Dobbins had 2 drops in this game, right?
2 big ones.
Yeah,
2 big drops in this game.
One, I think, if he would have caught, he could have went into the end zone.
Right.
Yeah, he could have had a touchdown, and then there was one earlier where it was a clear first down and some, and he dropped it.
But look at these stats, though, right? If I tell you these stats, you're going to automatically think that we win. Ravens, 340 yards to 220. Time of possession, 35 minutes, 33 seconds to 24-27. First downs, 19 to 17. Third down, 41.2% completion or conversion to 30.8. All of those heavily in favor of the Ravens. But it's these missed opportunities that cost us this game.
The other thing that we're talking about all the Tucker misses. We're talking about the miss by Dobbins. How about the unlikely punt by Cook that got handled it. Instead of keeping it a low punt, I get maybe he was trying to get it over the blocker, but he just put it way too high. And I want to say it went, 20 yards?
20-something yards. Again, he was probably trying to do something different with the ball to get the ball to cut through the wind, and it completely backfired on him because that is so un-Sam Cook-like. He's one of the greatest punters that we've ever had. He is the greatest punter in Ravens history. He's definitely been a top 5 punter in the league his entire career.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's plays like that you can't have against this good of a team, in these crucial playoff games. It's win or go home. And unfortunately, the Ravens are home.
Yeah,
at this point.
I when you kind of put this before me, I didn't go back and look at it right away, but when you put this, I was like, wait, that can't be right. We didn't win those categories by that much. And you go back and you're looking like, holy shit.
Yeah. It's crazy.
We should have won this game. I mean, you've talked it before. Time possession.
Shout out to our boy Joe Nubo. If you don't follow him, go follow him on YouTube, NF Podcast. He put a tweet out. He said, in an alternate universe where Tucker makes both kicks as he usually does, and Lamar throws a touchdown instead of a pick six in the red zone like he usually does, Ravens win 16-10 last night if everything else goes the exact same way. This is why every play matters in football, and I couldn't have said it any better.
Yeah, no, it's the prime example. We've all joked around in some of the games and some of the primetime predictions that we have, and we're like, James, we gave you shit the one night because the field goal opportunity that they didn't take, and I think they went for 2 or something along those lines. And we said that, that's going to come back to bite them, and you said no, and then it wound up coming back to bite them. But then I think you've done something to us where we can all look at different games and say, here's a play that could change the game, right? And in this game, I think you see it. One thing I did like to see was wasn't a whole lot of penalties in this game, but the penalties that were there, they hurt. Bradley Bozeman in a key situation gets a false start, which I think the guy was lined up in the neutral zone in the first place. But besides the point, he still is the one that jumps on that play. But it was the people that we've leaned on all year.
Yeah.
That had the biggest mistakes this year.
Yeah.
This game.
The offensive line was a challenge in this game. And this is something we're going to talk a little bit about. Matter of fact, we'll just dive into this because our buddy Jared on Twitter, I think, says Powers was getting handled all game long, shaking my head. This defensive front for the Bills isn't that great.
YouTube, by the way.
Or YouTube, okay. Hasn't been that great. But they physically dominated this offensive line. And I know we've talked about this a lot this year about when Ronnie Stanley went down and Orlando Brown shifted over to left tackle and how seamless he's been as a left tackle, and he's been great as a left tackle. The problem is we never replaced the right tackle. So, as great of a job as Orlando's doing on the left side, right tackle has been an issue. We've had Phillips in there. We've had Fluker in there. We've had multiple people try that position and fail. Right guard has been a problem. We've had all the issues with snapping the ball with Matt Skura early on the year. Yeah. That was a huge problem. And then that continued in this game with Makari having snap problems. This offensive line, which we thought going into this season was going to be a serious strength, one big injury to your all-pro left tackle changed everything with this offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, even in this game, Orlando Brown, who's done well, when we were talking about all the guys you've been leaning on struggled, there was a play that I think it was Lamar wound up scrambling and barely got back to the line of scrimmage, but the safety safety or one of the cornerbacks came off the edge. Orlando turned in to help with a double block, and this guy, as soon as he saw it, boom, came in off the blitz, went around enough that Orlando dove and barely got a swat at him, and he was in Lamar's face.
Yep, 100%.
Now, how about the sober game that we watched together, which that's not working. the sober game we watched together with the Buccaneers. Saw an old face, your favorite redhead.
Yeah, Ryan Jensen. Him. Oh, 100% we do.
Yeah.
He played like a man possessed. He's beating up everybody on the field. He's picking fights.
Yeah. Ryan Jensen was the guy who went to the defense of Joe Flacco when Flacco got hammered by Kiko Alonso against the Dolphins that day. Ryan Jensen is a dog, and we sorely miss him. I think we're going to talk a little bit about 2021 and an area of need. Offensive line, particularly the interior offensive line, including center, is a big need with this team moving forward for sure. But we got to talk about Lamar. Obviously, he had the one big mistake with the interception that got returned for a touchdown. Outside of that, I think where the offensive line comes into play with the issues with Lamar is that when Lamar isn't comfortable and Lamar is worried about the pressure, that's where his mechanics tend to break down, and that's where you see him make the most mistakes.
Right.
And we saw that in this game. We see that, consistently. It's not that Lamar, all these, people that really don't watch the team, they just look from afar and they look at the stats or they look at his bad plays and they think, oh, well, Lamar can't throw. Lamar can't do this. Lamar has proven that he can make ridiculous throws, dime throws. But it's when his mechanics break down because I think he gets in his head about the pressure because his offensive line can be leaky at times. It creates problems for Lamar.
Yeah, and that's we talked about the indecisiveness of his running too. When he's when he's on those designed passing plays and it's breaking down. Other games he's previously been able to get out of the pocket early.
Right.
He sees the pressure, says, "All right, I can't handle this," and finds the hole. The problem is in this game, because there was a spy on him all game long, the second he got out of the pocket, he was being met at the line of scrimmage. There was no him getting to the outside. When he was, it was because the linebacker, when he got up there, linebacker was already at the line of scrimmage, so he's trying to get to the outside to at least get back to the line of scrimmage. Right. It was a consistent problem throughout this game. And I think that's one of the things that you really have to assess, going into this offseason. I said it was our biggest thing last year. I still think, even with the healthy Ronnie Stanley, I don't know that I have confidence. I mean, would it have been better? Yeah. But it would have been your outside guys holding everything together. Your interior would have still struggled.
Right.
So I just don't know what the answer is. I don't know in free agency who it is. I don't know. You usually don't see a trade for an offensive lineman. I don't know that there's a lot that's there.
Yeah.
We're going to have to look at free agency at the end of the year, see who's available, who's healthy. And I joke about it, but I'm serious at the same time. I'm calling in a few of those XFL guys in the offseason, saying what you got, how you looking. Who knows? Right. One of these guys could be a fit and fill a hole. Now that he's been given a shot, he's healthy, whatever it may be. I'm not saying you're going to find the next Marshall Yanda by any means, but we can use some help. And at this point, you need to look for help wherever you can get it.
Yeah, I mean, if snapping the ball from center to the quarterback is a problem, that's a major problem. Like that shouldn't even be something that's a concern.
At this point, I don't know how to feel because Morgan Cox had a bad snap in this game as well.
I'm sure the wind in this game played a factor, even with
the cold.
And the cold, right? I'm sure it played a factor in that as well. But still, this has been an ongoing issue all year long. We benched a center because of this issue. This has to be corrected.
Yeah. So what's this comment you put up?
What are the odds Castillo is starting center next year? Sakura and Makari backs up are gone.
So I think Castillo is a good option. He's an undrafted guy. I do want to see him because the 2 games that he played this year, I thought he did really well. He played against 2 very good defensive fronts. So I think he'd be a good option, but I'm not ready to push all my cards in and say that Castillo is going to be the starter moving forward. This is an undrafted guy that showed potential. I think he's a good piece, but I still want to either go out there and sign, a veteran free agent center. If you have a little bit of cap room to be able to do that, which we're going to talk about. Cap room's going to be tight. We got to, figure out what we're going to do with that and who we're going to go after, who we're going to keep, all that stuff. There's a lot to answer with that. Or using one of your top-end draft picks, a first round, second round, or third round pick on a starting center.
Yeah, I think you need to do something. You have to, your insurance is that line on Lamar.
Right.
Simple as that. So if you don't have the protection, which is what I said last year, I said we should have been drafting offensive linemen. I hate to say it, but we had the chance that we probably could have traded up. I don't know what it would have cost us.
Right.
Would it have been worth it? I don't know. But I would have been a guy that was a little bit more top performing than these undrafted guys that we've been getting, or the guys that we're getting off free agency. And credit to DaCosta on all the fines that he has gotten. Right. He's allowed to miss every once in a while. And I think the offensive line is one spot that he has missed.
Right.
He hasn't been able to shore up that all. He's done great with the defensive line, great with the secondary, great with the linebacking core. Everything on defense has been stellar. I think we've missed it at the offensive line And I think we've really, truly missed the wide receiver position.
So speaking of wide receiver, I know you brought up Dez Bryant already. So our boy out there, Craig Zero, sent us a question on Twitter. He said, another point I forgot, but quick one. What was the point of signing Dez if you're not going to use him in crucial passing plays and just put him on the field once or twice a game? I'll let you dissect that a little bit first.
This really, I was watching it during the game, and the emotion just in the one play that he's targeted in this game, the emotion that just poured out of Dez in that moment, because it was pass interference as far as I'm concerned. I know they, I said earlier they kind of let him play, but that was a clear pass interference. Dez could have gotten the ball. He had his arm, couldn't get to it. It was no doubt about it. But you go and you get this guy, and he's putting in the work.
Right.
I get it. Maybe they said we're going to sign him as like a leader for this wide receiving core. Well, I'm sorry. How'd that work out? Great. He helped. Maybe he helped Boykin, right? Boykin has done better with the drops ish, right? I see you over there giving them.
He's doing better with the drops, but he's still not like taking some big charge with Dez. Yeah, he's had some key touchdowns, but those were in like kind of those non-committal games where they should have won anyway.
Right. So look, there's that side of things. There's also the side to me that I get frustrated that this is a guy that has experience down in those spots. So prime example, if I'm Greg Roman and I want to work on Lamar and his passing game, especially down in the red zone, being able to hit these guys across the middle, whatever it may be, the one thing I'm actually working on is the Dez to the corner throw. We've seen it work twice, and it wasn't run at all.
It's funny that you bring that up. I know you didn't see this, but so it appears, and this is just me giving my opinion, but it appears that there's some internal frustration with players and Greg Roman as well. And the reason I say that is because there's been some posting on social media, on Instagram accounts and Twitter accounts, of practice film. And it's Lamar in the red zone throwing those 50-50 balls to Dez Bryant on the side of the end zone there, in the corner of the end zone, and Dez is going up and catching every single one of them. And this is going up against, some of our better corners.
The Jimmies, the Marlins, yeah.
So it answers two questions. It answers, does Dez still have something left in the tank? All those practice videos show he does. It shows that Lamar Jackson can make those throws. And if they're practicing them, why the fuck are they not using it? And I think that's what a lot of these players are getting frustrated with. Because remember, when these practice videos were leaked, it was a big deal when Earl Thomas did it, right? We don't leak this kind of shit, and the players got released for it right now. Players know that, and they're still putting these practice films out there because they're frustrated.
Yeah, I mean, it's very clear. I mentioned it earlier, the Steve Smith interview post game, and the vanilla offense. He even said that he's heard issues that players have with Greg Roman, and the fact that it's so vanilla, it's so predictable, and now I think we're lending credibility. Remember way back when in this season, when everybody gave Lamar crap for making the statement that they're calling my plays out. Well, no shit. Now we've seen it the second half of the year.
Right.
We've seen them. Now they're just not verbally calling it out, but they know what's coming.
Yeah, that's true. So our buddy Sam Jackson, he says, if we replace Roman, who? So the question isn't who. It's more so what philosophy change you want to go with first, right? So I think Hollywood kind of hit on this a little bit in his post-game press conference. He talked about being the 32nd ranked passing team. It's got to change.
Yeah.
Like there's something wrong in that. There needs to be more balance. It's great that this team leads the league in rushing for the last 2 years. That's great. And it's definitely a strength. It's our biggest strength is our running game. It's our biggest threat. But there has to be better balance from the passing game. There has to be more complex routes. There's got to be better receivers. There's got to be better targets. There's so many things to this. It's not a one answer question. Does Greg Roman fix everything? No. Replacing Greg Roman doesn't fix everything. You've got to put the weapons out there. Right now, the Ravens wide receiver core, we're talking about Des Bryant, a guy who hasn't played in the league in a couple years because nobody else wanted to give this guy a shot, and we're complaining that he didn't get enough time. Like, if that's the complaint that you have with your wide receiver core, well, then your wide receiver core is trash.
Right.
And it is. And Hollywood Brown showed a lot of promise the last couple of weeks of the season. And I think he can be a very good number 2, but he will never be a number 1 in this league. He's not a number 1. You need to start shifting that money, some of that money from the defensive side of the ball that you've been investing. You need to put some of that on the offensive side. I'm not a guy that's going to say, let's fire Greg Roman and that's going to fix everything. I still think that Greg Roman's offense can work, but if you get him a number 1 and the offense doesn't improve with a true number 1 receiver, then 100%, in my opinion, Greg Roman's out.
I think
I don't know if I'm ready to throw the cards in on him yet.
I get what you're saying, but we see a history with him and doing this with quarterbacks. When he starts trying to do passing, it's not his strength at all. So is there an assistant coach that maybe do like I think there is an internal guy. So if you're asking me who, I think you could give a guy. You already have the system in place, right? And the guys in this system already know how to run Roman's offense effectively.
Right.
So there's 2 guys that come to mind. One guy, David Culley, right? Been with the team for quite a while. He's your passing coordinators.
He's your wide receiver coach.
But what does he have? Really had to work with?
Let's do that.
Right? On that hand. But on the other side, the guy who I think deserves maybe a shot, James Urban. He's your quarterbacks coach. Let him help take your quarterback to the next level with using part of Roman's scheme, and let him put his little flair on it.
I've never been a fan of the multiple coordinator role, the passing game coordinator, the run game coordinator. There's too many cooks in the kitchen. You know, you need that one guy that can bring balance to your offense. I'm not saying that we need to get away from running the ball. Again, running the ball is our strength, but you need to have better balance to be a successful offense in this league. But
adjustments on Greg Roman's part, they failed in San Francisco. Mm-hmm. They failed in Buffalo. And now they've failed. I know, and I'm being very picky, and you were both being picky with this because this team. Let's not forget that this team actually did get to the playoffs, right? And did get past. They got the monkey off the back of the first wins, but at the same time, like it's like he can only get this offensive scheme or this offensive style so far. Go ahead, James.
I'm gonna give it to you guys. I'm gonna give Fred even redder. Harbaugh and Roman's got to go. You can't always blame Romans. The head coach got to eat some of this too. You got to have a head coach that can make a decision to say, hey, this is what I do. I'm tired of the press conference after, like, well, you showed the pores. It's like the good motivated speaker, the correct way of speaking. Well, we need to start speaking football. And I'm sorry. I don't care how many times we make the playoffs. That doesn't mean shit anymore. It didn't mean shit when Andy Reid did it for the Eagles all those years and winning division championships for that conference. I think Harbaugh needs to go because these offensive coordinators just keep on turning, and he just sits there, and someone's got to eat the bullet.
I don't agree with that at all.
I mean, you don't.
Harbaugh, he's still one of the better coaches in the league. Does he have problems with time management? Yes. But Harbaugh isn't the one making the play calls. It comes down to, again, it comes down to Greg Roman.
But he needs to know something.
Here's the other thing, too, that you got to factor into this. And this is why I say I'm not against, let me put this out there. I'm not against getting rid of Greg Roman. But I'm not one pounding the table saying that we need to get rid of Greg Roman either. I want to see what this offense looks like with a true number 1 receiver. I still think part of his handicap is the wide receiver core that he has. And I'm going to put this in perspective, right? And I know some of the people out here have already seen this stat, but Josh Allen, we're talking about him for a potential MVP this year. He's one of the front runners for MVP this year, right? Okay. 2019, he was a 58% completion passer, and he passed for 3,089 yards. You give him a number 1 receiver, Stephon Diggs, and now he's completing 69% of his passes. He's 11% better in his completion percentage, and he threw for 4,500 yards. That's 1,500 more yards than Josh Allen threw for last year, not having a true number 1 receiver. So my point is, like, Again, I'm not completely against getting rid of Greg Roman, but if you go out there and you get yourself a true number one receiver and then you don't see any improvement in the pass game, then yeah, he's out of strikes.
I get what you're saying. I also get what James is saying because I've been on this point at times before throughout the season. When it comes to Harb, at some point, right, we had the losing seasons. We kind of, Lamar took us to that next level, and at some point, everybody else has to stop falling on the sword. Right? How many offensive coordinators do you have to go through? We talked last week about how many head coaches do you have to go through before a GM goes? How many offensive coordinators do you have to go through before that happens? Now, I know that some of them were successful.
It's a rotating door here in Baltimore with offensive coordinators.
And
it has been.
But again, and some of that is going towards the idea of these guys became head coaches or went and took a head coaching job. I get it. But you also have guys like Morningwig, Roman, who just can't seem to get over a hump, can't seem to do it. And Chuck's asking, who replaces Harbs if you ditch him? And I'll tell you this right now. If Harbs was done today, and if anybody in this room disagrees with me, I'll rip you a new asshole because I think you're 100% wrong. If Harbs leaves today, the top candidate the Ravens should go after and have the best possibility, would have potentially the best possibility of getting Eric Bieniemy.
So I was going to talk about him, and I think it's going to be worse than that. I think Eric Bieniemy is going to get passed over for all these jobs again.
It's ridiculous.
He's decided for the Eagles job.
I think he's going to get passed over again. And last year he was the number one option too for a head coach. And I think that you could see him coming in as the offensive coordinator here because he has reached his peak in people's eyes under Andy Reid. Because everyone gives all the credit to Andy Reid for everything that they're doing.
That's a good point. If he comes in and this offense makes that next move and that next step, then yeah, you're right.
I'd be
that's a good
okay
point.
with him at head coach, but it might be better. It might be Harbs at
This team just went 14-2 and then went 11-5. I get it that they, last year they were out of the playoffs in one game, and this year they're out of the playoffs in 2 weeks or 2 games. John Harbaugh's not going anywhere.
No,
he's not, and there's not any options out there
for Mike Tomlin.
Eric Bieniemy is the popular name, and yes, he's had success down there in Kansas City. But how much of that success is geared around Patrick Mahomes? Patrick Mahomes is a goddamn animal. He's a beast. So there's a reason. It could be other reasons, but there's a reason that Eric Bieniemy hasn't landed a job quite yet, right? I'm not saying that like a lot of players like him, like Wink Martindale, right? Wink Martindale is a guy that all the players love to play for, and he's been one of the best. He's had one of the best defenses for the past couple years in the NFL. This year, he didn't even get a phone call or an interview. Why is that? Right? There are guys that just don't get the opportunities because of either maybe it's age, maybe it's perception, maybe it's scheme, it's fit. It's like right now the popular thing to do is hire anybody that's got anything with a M, a C, a K, an A, a V, or a Y in their name because they're related to McVay in some sort of way, right? Like any kind of connection to McVay who's going to get you a job.
There's no K in McVay.
Or whatever. Yeah, however you spell his name. But my point is, like, there's too many unknowns with bringing another head coach in, and I don't think that John Harbaugh is that bad of a coach that he's ready to get. We're ready to get rid of him.
No, I guess I get what James is saying though. Is at some point Harbs needs to not fall on the sword, but kind of fall on the sword, and it comes down to coach. It comes down to coaching and the play calling. Not once have we heard him publicly address, or if I personally, and if you guys have, please let me know, I have not once heard him publicly address that their play calling was trash in a game.
John, that's not his style though. Like he doesn't
he's a motivator.
He doesn't throw
really he's motivating. He's motivated Greg Roman really well.
He's motivated to the fans, like to get you guys, because at the end of the day, it'd be one thing if we're winning the division, but we're making the playoffs. I don't care about that every year. I don't want to win the playoffs every year. We get the worst pick, and we do nothing for our team.
It's like the Orioles mentality of let's just be competitive.
Yeah,
I don't want to do that. The goal is the Super Bowl.
I'd rather not make the playoffs for like 3 years and then win the division and make the playoffs and lose. I mean, make the playoffs, go to the Super Bowl and lose, than to keep on making the playoffs and get bounced. I'm tired of it, and our selection of draft picks ain't the greatest at it.
There's a reason we don't have an edge rusher. It's because they're all drafted at the top of the draft. And we're never at the top of the draft.
And real quick, I got a question.
But you don't need an edge rusher with the
I
way
got a question for you. There's a need and then there's a how we draft in the NFL draft. Like, so we need a inside offensive
interior lineman.
Interior line. We need a wide receiver. We need a pass rusher. But how it goes in the draft, it all changes. What's the best player available?
Best player available
that
has been
needs.
the Ravens strategy for years.
So like you might say we need a interior lineman first, but where we select in the draft is not going to be there. So we probably have to go with a wide receiver or a pass rusher.
But I guess my thing to that would be, we historically have always we covet draft picks, right?
Yeah.
We've talked, and you've been the one to say it, like we feel like there's a small window, and that window, it very well could be starting to close. It could be still open. It's tough to say. But your time with Lamar and this main core, it's almost up. And so is this the year that the Ravens make a move and say, we're going to leverage our future to get it now, because now is our time and we need to take that next step?
We're going to talk about all of that in the 2021 portion, so we'll get there.
So I need you to clear up one thing for me, Fred. So you made it very clear you're not calling Eric Bieniemy for a head coaching job. But if my thing comes to fruition and he gets passed over for
I'm
all
saying
the head
I'm not
coaching,
calling for him over Harbs.
okay, but if he gets passed over for all the open head coaching jobs, which I hope for his sake doesn't happen, but it happened last year and I think it'll happen again, do you pick up that phone and see if he wants to come show that he can do it somewhere else?
Why would he want to do that?
Because
Of course, and I'm sure all 31 other teams would. But why would he do that?
Because Andy Reid is stealing all of his. I mean, Andy Reid is a huge part of that team. I'm not going to say he's stealing anything, but everyone is crediting everything Bieniemy does to Andy Reid. So if he can come here and show he can improve outside of Andy Reid, even though it's still
he can do it with
100%. Like I said, I'm not on the
Bieniemy over G. Roman.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not even a question. Again, I'm not on the let's keep Greg Roman. I'm just saying that it's not as simple as firing Greg Roman and that fixes everything.
Oh, it's not a replace one piece.
It's got to be the right hire, and then you've got to have the right personnel for whatever that system's going to be coming in.
Drew.
Go ahead, Drew.
I was going to add the whole Bieniemy thing here. Almost, it's an intriguing thought process because just that the 4th and 1 call alone, it seems like Andy Reid got all the credit, and then maybe it was Andy Reid's call, but like. Who drew up the you know what I mean? Like if Bieniemy drew up that play, it was your call to go for it. But if you drew up the play, it was genius,
right?
So I mean, to you, that adds to the point. Like, well, what if he goes and he becomes an OC somewhere?
If he's open to that, 100%.
Yeah, me.
I'm Eric DeCosta, and I'm calling him from 4 different phones at one time to try to get a hold of him.
Yeah.
Like 100%, I'm on board with that. And again, like I said, the G-Row thing, it's just got to be the right person. It's not replacing him for the sake of replacing him because everybody's frustrated with the offensive production. Yes, we're frustrated. I'm sure the Ravens are frustrated with it. Like I said, all this shit going on social media right now shows that they're frustrated with it. But it's got to be the right fit. And again, we've all talked about it. You can bring in Eric Bieniemy in here, but this wide receiver core as it's designed right now is not the Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver core.
No, it's not, and that's the big thing. So like Craig says, Eric will come because if he did it with Mahomes, he will do it with Lamar, and it'll give him more credit. And I think that's what Ryan's point is that there is more upside in that situation for him if he's not offered that. He can go, all right, you guys don't want to give me a job, then I'm going to show you I can go do it somewhere else, and then my price next time is going to go up.
Yeah.
Which would, to your point, I think that's a great point.
He
If he doesn't
take
get
an
it,
offensive coordinator role now. But if you've been bypassed 2 years in a row, there's nothing. In his own head, he'll say, "I've reached my ceiling. No one's going to look at me any different, no matter what the Chiefs do next year. They're not going to get any better than they are right now. And Andy Reid's not going to sit out half the season so that you can get credit. So you would have to go show it elsewhere so that you can get to the next step of your career. Because obviously he wants to be a head coach in the NFL. Nobody gets to where he is without wanting to do that.
Right. All right, well, let's before we get into the 2020 season as a full-on recap, Ryan, let's do a social media shout-out. Who's been out there? Are there any comments that you want us to bring up, anything like that?
Yeah, I got Chuck, Steven, Travis, Kamal, Joe Carlozzo, J-Man Days, Samuel L. Jackson, Live and Leggin, Bleed Purple, Justin Marshall, Big Play Dave, who gave us credit that his drinking sounds like a true Browns fan the last decade. Jesse Wilkerson, Garnett West, Jared Green, Fox's 23, Phil Bellios, and Nick Short. J-Man Days did ask us who we want to win the Super Bowl. I know we're going to get into our picks later, but is anybody want to say who you're rooting for at this point?
We'll talk about it, but I'm pulling for the Bills, man. So that's something that we haven't talked about, man. Shout out to Bills Mafia. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, they've done this in the past, when when the Bills needed the Bengals to beat the Ravens to get into the playoffs, the Bills and end up getting into the playoffs, and Bills Mafia goes out there and donates all this money to Andy Dalton's charitable foundation. Well, they did the same thing after this. Lamar goes down, obviously gets the concussion, and they end up donating to his favorite charity, which is a charity he started back in his Louisville days, Blessings in a Backpack, and now have raised over $320,000. $320,000 is over $250,000. Unreal, man. It's just, I relate a lot to Bills Mafia because, you hear all the stories about the crazy tailgates and all that stuff. And that's part of the fun for me going to the games, right? Is all the tailgating party that I missed in 2020. But I enjoy that. I get down like that. Obviously, I partied a little too hard this weekend, but I could
Did you go through a table this weekend?
Yeah, I didn't go through a table, but I might as well have. I felt like it the next day. Yeah, but I mean, just kudos to them, man. I'm pulling for the Bills. We'll talk about my prediction later, and we'll talk about all of our predictions later. But I'd love to see the Bills get in there. Plus, obviously, Stephon Diggs, he a Terp.
Yeah, I think they've done a lot to show that they deserved it, and their fan base has been behind it. They've struggled over the years, right? And I think it's just one of those things that, like you said, it was nice to see that situation, with Lamar. The video of Lamar coming out to the fans too after the game, giving him love, and that. It wasn't like them coming out and going, "Lamar, you suck." No, they were like, "Hey, can we get a picture, man?" Like it was genuine, because you get some of those fans out there and they're cussing these guys out and and Lamar took everything in stride and just was recognized that these people just wanted
he
his
sat
picture.
there for 5 or 6 minutes and talked to him. Like, the guy's going to get the Bills fan's going to get a Ravens jersey, and he's going to frame it and all that stuff with his pictures. Just kind of a cool moment for Lamar. Go ahead.
Strange Stephon Diggs story. Found out today at work. One of the residents that I work with, one of the young docs training there, he said, I told him about my sports podcast, and he's like, "Oh, yeah, I grew up next to somebody that played for the Terps." And I'm like, "Oh, who is it?" Thinking I could work the angles to get an interview, see if it was somebody. He's Stephon Diggs. I'm like, "Yeah, he's not coming on my show. This isn't going to work." I was hoping it'd be like some backup linebacker I could give a phone call to.
Who's the guy I don't know his name?
Yeah. and he's like, "Yeah, his brother plays too." And I'm like, "Yeah, Trayvon." He's like, "Yeah, I think he plays for Dallas." Like, it was like, why I was not bullshitting. It was just he knew that his neighbors played for the NFL.
Right. That's
He's like,
funny.
"Yeah, I beat Stephon Diggs in basketball in high school. That was my crowning achievement of sports."
That's pretty impressive. I'm sure Stephon Diggs is a hell of an athlete.
I'm sure it was
he is
a
good at
team
basketball.
thing. I don't think this guy one-on-one Stephon Diggs or anything. But he said that was his crowning moment in sports, was beating Stephon Diggs.
That's awesome. All right, man. So let's, we talked about this Bills game, but let's look back at this entire season, because this has been a season, many ups, many downs.
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
Tons of adversity, high expectations coming into the year, tons of distractions and limitations and criticism. I mean, this has just been a crazy 2020 year. You got Lamar, coming off an MVP season at 23 years old, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's saying, "Oh yeah, but he can't pass. Yeah, but he can't win a big game or anything like that." I understand, the passing numbers weren't there. How much of that was on Lamar? How much of that was on Greg Roman? We've talked a little bit about that. I think that all kind of played on Lamar's competitive nature of wanting to prove people wrong, that I think he got out there and tried to force the issue with passing, and avoiding, like we talked about in the first half of the year, Lamar kind of got away from taking some of those runs that the defense gives him that he took last year. Now, granted, he still ran for over 1,000 yards, but was 200 yards short of what he ran for the year before.
Right.
And I don't want Lamar Jackson running all the time, but when the defense gives it to you,
take it.
And I think he heard all that criticism in the preseason.
He was focused on one part of his game.
And he really wanted to develop that side of his game. But I think that kind of hampered his success this year.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of things. Obviously, we've talked about Greg Roman and this scheming ad nauseum, and then the fact that Lamar had all that. I think you're spot on. I think there was a lot going on. I think it was also, I think Roman may have heard a little bit of that too, right? Well, Lamar can't do it, so all right, let's take Lamar to the next level. Let's try to get his passing game better. And the only way you're going to do that is opportunities. Right, so that's the only way that a guy's going to be able to get better. You can do it in practice all you want, but if you're not giving the opportunities in game, I think that plays a little bit of a role. So it was probably, hey, sit back, and then I think we hit that point where it was like, okay, it isn't working, and we're putting this year in jeopardy.
Right,
and obviously we saw once they went back to what made them good and great last year. Boom, they finished out the season and went out.
Ran off 6 straight if you include the first week of the playoffs.
Right. So,
there's only one team out of 32 that's going to win the Super Bowl, right? And I know we want to win the Super Bowl every single year, right? And we know that our window of opportunity to have all of these great players around Lamar and around this team is small. But at the end of the day, they got to the divisional round of the playoffs, right? Lamar proved that he could beat the Titans, that he could win that big game when all the doubters out there said that he couldn't, right? And like you said, that second half of the year, when he got back to playing Lamar, we started to see him have more success. We started to see Hollywood Brown have more success over the last couple of weeks. These are good things that we can carry into next year. 100%, there's still things that need to be added. There's still things that need to be changed. But it's not all doom and gloom. Well, I know it's sad that we're not in the playoffs anymore and we're talking about a defeat. But it's not doom and gloom around this team.
But to your point, there was a lot going on overall on this team, right? I mean, the injuries this year, they really did hurt us. We talked earlier about Ronnie Stanley going down. We know this offense has been a problem, and I agreed with you earlier. Orlando made that transition seamlessly, worked great. But would this line have done enough in that Bills game had Ronnie Stanley been in there, had Orlando Brown been on the other side? Could they have helped protect a little bit more than what was there? We talked about the rotating door that is right tackle right now.
Right.
If you solidify 2 positions, now I have one less that I got to worry about. Start working on some double teams and things like that. But it doesn't work.
Outside of Orlando Brown and Bradley Bozeman this year, the offensive line was a rotating mess.
Yeah.
Losing Ronnie Stanley, your all-pro left tackle, was a huge blow. It's impressive, and it probably played his way out of Baltimore unless he chooses to stay, as to what Orlando Brown was able to do at left tackle. He could very
somebody
easily
could offer him a contract,
get a heavy payday somewhere else, and if he's chasing money, the Ravens are not going to be able to afford to pay 2 tackles, left tackle type of money.
There's upside and downside to him. With Baltimore, right? Upside is this is where he kind of grew up around. This is what he knows. He knows the organization. He knows the organization's going to treat him well. But there's a downside that comes out of those situations that the average fan, the average person doesn't think about, right?
Yep.
How does he feel about being in the shadow of his father? His father's known in this city, right? Zeus. We're giving him Zeus. We call him Zeus Jr. I don't think he does.
I don't think that's a thing with him at all. I think he
likes that.
He loves the honor and the respect of his father and being compared to him. His father was a damn good tackle in his day.
And look, I agree with you face value, but you never know when...
He could be wrong.
You never know when somebody could be putting on a front, right? We've all done it. We've all been in that situation. Are you all right? Yeah, I'm fine. I'm good. And you're not.
Deep down, you're not.
Right?
I get that.
And that's... You don't know how he's truly feeling, and he's a guy that because he loves this city, I don't think he would ever show you.
Right.
He would the way you'd find out is when he gets a contract from another team and he goes elsewhere, and it comes out that I love Baltimore. That's where my dad was, but I thought it was time to move on and make my own
legacy.
Stand. Right.
I don't like saying in the shadow of his father though, because you don't ever really hear people like saying that. Comparing him to his father is like he's not living up to that legacy. Like he's gotten a pretty fair shot on his own.
I think
he
so
very
too.
well could have been in the shadow of his father here, but I don't feel like it's played out that way.
He has. The only thing that I think references that is like the Zeus Jr. reference. That's the only thing that I think.
But I mean, when somebody lost their father, I mean, they're going to want to live up to the dreams of their father.
He's going to be Zeus Jr. no matter where he goes. His father was an NFL player.
Oh, I agree, but it's different when you're. It's different when you're in that when you're in your father's city. I'm not saying that that's the case. This is 1,000% pure speculation of just saying, like, you never know how a guy feels. We all think and hope that he would take the hometown discount, but some guys, they are chasing the money or they are chasing a legacy.
These guys are about setting their future up. Their future, their kids' future, their kids' future.
And he's a smart kid.
And he can make that kind of money signing a big left tackle type deal if somebody sees the value and wants to pay him.
I'm sure somebody's going to look and go, "This kid played
amazing
at left tackle.
How much of a discount is he going to get? Or willing to
knowing
take
that he's
going to stay here as a right tackle?
Right. Knowing
there's
he's
always
a
price for something. I mean, if he might want to stay here and play his whole career out for his father, but there's a number that's going to get him to forget that.
And somebody, no doubt, to your point, somebody could hit it. The way he's played and the way that
he showed he's more than capable.
It wasn't just his ability to play the position, but it was the seamless move, literally in a week.
Yep.
The seamless move. You saw a little bit of just hiccup in the first week. The second week, it was as if he had been playing there the whole season.
Stanley's injury hurt us twice. I mean, losing him was bad, and I think it caused you to let everyone else see that this is not only a right tackle. You could pay him more on the left.
So sticking with injuries, you talk about losing Ronnie Stanley. You know, we talked about the secondary being a strength coming into this year and how good the secondary was going to be. And well, you had all the drama and shit that went on with Earl Thomas, but then you lose your starting slot corner and Tavon Young, who has just been. You talk about injury prone. I know we give Deshaun Elliott issues, because his injuries. He made it through a full season. No broken bones. But Tavon Young, the minute we signed that dude to a 3-year extension and paid him good money, he has not been on the football field.
No, I mean that's been a big issue. That's cap money that you're not able to use. It's cap, but had you not signed him to that, I know they obviously reworked his contract with this year in that deal, but it still hurts because that's money you could have been going and using elsewhere to find that replacement,
right.
Or make a trade for that replacement, whatever it may have been that you could have taken on a little bit more of a salary cap. It's just not something that you want to see. And look, I mean, he's had some injuries at this point,
right? And
I didn't like the fact that they signed him to the deal that they did with the injury history. Yeah. I know you guys gave me a lot, especially you on the injury prone, and it's not the same. It's just been, one thing after another.
There's guys that have like muscle issues, guys that roll their ankles all the time. That's injury prone. Guys that have knee injuries, that's injury prone. Broken bones to me is an injury prone thing. That's just bad luck, bad place, wrong time.
Yeah.
But sticking with injuries, right? So we all knew going into this season that we weren't going to have a decent pass catcher in Hayden Hurst, that, he had ended up getting traded over to Atlanta, right? Well, we were down to 2 significant tight ends in Mark Andrews and Nick Boyle. Nick Boyle had developed more into a pass-catching tight end as well. Yeah. We all know what he brings as a blocker, but he had developed his game as a pass catcher because they didn't have Hayden Hurst anymore. He needed to be more involved in the offense. And I think losing a guy like Nick Boyle was a big blow to this team that doesn't get talked about enough.
No, I mean, both of those losses, right? Not just the injury to arguably the best blocking tight end in the league.
Right.
But the loss of Hayden Hurst, we talked about this early in the season because we started to see it. That 3 tight end set did a lot for us last year.
It did a ton of damage for us last year. 100% it did.
And this year, while Hayden wasn't involved in it as much, we didn't see it as much this year because you didn't have that second guy with sure hands. Now, Boyle, before the injury, started to be coming on like that.
Right.
And then timing, injury. Yep. He goes down. He's done for the season. It really hurt. And I think you really see that the 3 tight end set is what made Lamar successful in that, last year.
Right.
This year, when he doesn't have that over the middle quick route to 2 guys plus the blocker, I don't know, right? It's just not there. We talked before. Did we think it made sense to, especially once you brought Dez on? should Boykin make the move? Make him be more physical. Make him step up. And
there was
and
no
do
way
things.
that the Boykin thing would have ever happened in the middle of the year. Like he would have to go through so much of a transformation with his body, and it's a lot to learn for the the difference from the wide receiver to the tight end position. He that wouldn't have been an easy transition. That would have been more of a long-term decision that you were gonna. He's not working out here. We're just gonna scratch it and start building his body and resculpting him into a tight end. He would have had to have put on another 30 or 40 pounds.
Either way, I mean, he needs to put on another 10 or 20 pounds and become more physical. I
don't think it's a weight problem with him. That's just a mentality thing with him. Like he's strong enough, he's big enough to be a physical wide receiver. That's just not his style of play. Hasn't been so far, and that's frustrating because he should be physically manhandling. I was watching the Bucks and Saint game. And I even put a tweet out about this. There was a throw where Tom Brady in the red zone, he's like 10 yards out, and he just leads Mike Evans in the end zone. Mike Evans is fighting with his cornerback with his hands, throws the ball because he knows and he trusts that Mike Evans is going to win that battle, turn around and catch the ball, and he did. And that's the type of wide receiver that we're missing out of this offense. And that's the type of a wide receiver, the type of build that Miles Boykin should be.
Yeah.
Like he is that big physical guy.
Living legend, Ryan just put it up for us. Boykin plays indifferent.
Yeah.
We've talked about that. There's almost no emotion, his ability to get to things. Jonathan also has a good comment. Lamar throwing like Rodgers in those Dez videos. You were talking about that. I'd be curious to see those same videos with Boykin in there. Because if the videos then show Boykin's not catching the ball, he's not being physical and going up and getting it, then everything that we're hearing is 1,000% valid. Why was it not played out in that scenario or in those scenarios? If Dez is on the field in that red zone play and you've been practicing it, and Lamar has the confidence to go to him over a guy, over a Marcus Peters, over a Marlon Humphrey, if that's who he was playing in practice. My God, that's where that's where there's questions about Roman. That's where there are questions about Harbs. Harbs, if you saw this, you knew in practice how Dez was beating your men in the end zone. Why the fuck wasn't this play called? And why the hell wasn't Dez on the field?
It was multiple plays. Go ahead, James.
But to get back to the Evans play, when he did that was on Lattimore, which is a physical corner anyways.
Right.
But also, it just tells you Tom Brady, how long he's been in the league and working with his wide receivers that we saw. He went down early, worked with them. Like, that's what we need, to be able to throw the ball, and when you're turning, the wide receiver's catching the ball. Like, he knows where his wide receivers are. I feel with Lamar, he's got to wait until they're physically turning their body to throw the ball.
Lamar doesn't trust his wide receivers, and that's a problem. And whether that's on the receiver's end, because we don't see everything. We don't see everything in practice.
And that's my point.
And it could be that Boykin is getting manhandled in practice, and that's why he feels like he can't throw those jump balls, those 50-50 balls, because he's not winning those battles in
and that's where my
practice.
Point that it's a coaching problem.
Right. But what we're seeing in these videos, to Jonathan's point, and like I said earlier, the practice videos that Hollywood posted, the practice videos that Dez posted of him winning those inside the red zone battles in the red zone, there's no excuse for those plays not to be utilized. If they're winning those battles in practice against some of the best cornerbacks in the league, why are we not using this every day? Why is this not being utilized on game day?
Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of the players' frustration sounds like it's coming from, and I'm really curious to see what really truly comes out of that. But the other guy we've been talking about some of our best corners in the league and some of our best DBs in the league. One guy that's been impactful when he's on the field, and we feel it even this year when he isn't. Jimmy Smith.
Yeah, I mean Jimmy Smith was 1B, in my opinion, as far as top cornerback on this team this year. You could put him up there as far as production-wise and shutdown ability-wise when he's out there guarding, right up there with Marlon. I think he's been that kind of player. The problem with Jimmy is being healthy and staying on the field long enough, and that's kind of been his problem over the last couple of years is being healthy and staying on the field.
So let me ask you this, because we didn't really truly fully get into this last week when we talked about the extension to Jimmy Smith.
Loved it, by the way.
And that was what I was curious. Is that something that you think was warranted?
100%.
Given his history with this team, given the fact that the field and the play calling by wink, it can change because you have another guy that's a shutdown type guy. But also, is there a risk of giving that contract and giving the cap space when you're already coveting any cap space that you're going to be able to get over the next few years to be able to pay some of these guys?
It was a low value deal for a guy of his type of production.
Okay.
Very low production. And again, we run into this problem with depth every single year. Cornerbacks drop like freaking flies every single year. And when Jimmy Smith at the beginning of this year was your number 4 cornerback, where he could be a number 1 cornerback on a good portion of teams in this league, that's a damn good problem to have.
Yeah.
I get it. Like the injury history is a problem, and that's why he's not making all the money that he could be making. If he could prove he could stay on the field, I believe he could get paid top money. But the injury history, and I think him wanting to finish out his career as a Raven.
He will retire a Raven.
He will retire a Raven, and I think that's why he signed this deal. And it was a great value deal and a great signing and a right timing for it for Eric DeCosta.
Yeah, and just everything in this season, kind of wrap this all up. We go 1-4, reach 6-5 on the season,
and things look terrible.
Yeah,
I remember when we did the show when we were sitting at 6-5, and we're like, where the fuck do we go from here? We're 6-5.
Who do we trade?
What just happened? We're in the middle of a COVID outbreak. We don't know what's going to happen with this season. We lost all these games that we should have been in and we should have won. Things just look like shit. Now, granted, we all did say, all right, well, we got a pretty easy schedule from here on out. We could win 4 or 5 and still be in the thick of things. But it took every single win and going 11-5 to get into the playoffs, and we were able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, they were able to squeeze it out with everything that was there, everything in front of them. And that was the crazy part about what we saw on Sunday with the Bills was, we saw from week 12 on the mentality that they've been preaching, finish.
Right.
Now in what is arguably the 3rd biggest game of the year, meaning if you win that one, the next one's the biggest game. And if you win that one, Super Bowl is the biggest game.
Right.
In the 3rd biggest game that they could have played in, they just could not finish in any sense of the word. Offense, special teams, and look, defense did their job.
Will not criticize the defense at all.
Defense came out and played
their ass off.
Gave up some spots. We found some guys in some wrong spots on some digs catches that were good. But I also give them credit because
Diggs is the best wide receiver in football this year.
How many toe taps on the sideline did we see in that game?
Diggs going to get his.
My God.
I don't care who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, talking about backing up the truck for somebody, he can have the Brinks truck. It's not just back it up and dump the money. He can drive that shit home.
All right, Scott, before we get into the 2021 season and what we're going to expect for 2021, it's time for a Liquor Stop Brew of the Week. So, what does Jerry and the boys have you drinking today? Because I'm not drinking shit.
Yeah.
Nothing.
In case you missed it, he's not drinking anything because he doesn't remember the Ravens game. He had to go back and watch it. We actually had a secondary beer for this week because I wasn't able to get up there. So this is another one that we've had before, but he does have
one of our favorites.
It is one of our favorites. It is definitely your favorite, which is why I figured I'd rub it in that I'm drinking it this week. But I don't think you care at this point.
Do not give one shit.
This is from
not 2 or 1.
This is
no shits given.
Brewdog. This is the Pulp Patriot Raspberry Milkshake IPA. This stuff is good. I know that James over there has got a broken skull. We've had some Bud Lights, which obviously you can always get at Liquor Stop. They have a pretty good deal with the Bud Lights. Wherever you're looking for the Screwball. Obviously, we're always drinking Screwball. Obviously, you didn't do another shot of Screwball. That either. Or Jack Honey. We've been drinking Jack Honey too. So make sure you go up to Liquor Stop, 1510 Conowingo Road. Tell them Birdland BS sent you. Get your 10% off.
All right, man. So let's answer some questions about 2021. What kind of changes are we looking for? What free agents could we potentially go after? What draft, positions we want to go after? But let's first talk about some news that's happened over the last couple of days. I was going to say, before
we get into the what ifs, I think we got to get into what happened and the kind of breaking news that's happened this week. You were saying Jeff Zreback was the one that kind of seemed to first report, or that's where you kind of first saw it.
Yeah.
You said that the Ravens waive RG3.
Yep. Not a surprise.
I would say, did anybody not think that
Thank
was
you
coming?
for your service, RG3. Much respect, but adios.
You did your job while you were here.
He did.
You helped
all the
coach up
respect
Lamar.
in the world, and I'm glad you were able to extend your career for a couple extra years when nobody else would give you a shot. But hey, you did your job while you're here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wide receiver DeAnthony Thomas.
Yeah.
Not really surprised. He was a flash in the pan. We saw a little bit out of him, not a whole lot. Quarterback Devontae Harris, who when he was on the field seemed like they were throwing the ball his way every single time, and it was either a pass interference or a big completed catch.
I still think Harris has a role in this team. I still think he ends up coming back next year. And he even kind of
practice squad special teams, maybe.
Nah, practice squad. I think he'll be a depth guy. I think he'd be a guy like Anthony Averett behind Anthony Averett. Maybe like a 5th or 6th cornerback on this team, depending on how many they carry.
Well, then you got Draymond Williams, too, who they also let go.
Right.
Another cornerback. So
right. The Ravens did sign 11 players to the reserve future deals. Quarterback Tyler Huntley, who looked very good in the little bit of time that he's gotten to play this year.
No brainer. Somebody would swipe him up for a backup
number
spot.
2 this coming year. Do you think it's him or Trace?
Who?
I need to see how Trace comes back. I mean, because Trace showed some poise. He was able to control it when Lamar went down. I think it'll be a fight to the finish. Tyler put up that he can run this. I think he could run this offense just a little bit better than McSorley could if you're going to continue to run the offense this way.
I think, yeah, exactly. If you're going to stick with this offensive scheme, I think he is the most seamless transition from Lamar to another quarterback. Not saying that Trace McSorley isn't a mobile quarterback, because he is and he's capable, but I just think what Tyler Huntley's been able to show and prove in the couple of opportunities that he got is that we might have found a diamond in the rough with him. I know Ryan even pre-show said, "Oh, maybe he's going to challenge Lamar for the starting." Get the fuck out of here!
Ryan didn't say that.
It was James.
But Ryan does say, "Don't pay your quarterback." So maybe in 3 years he can challenge him for it.
Pay your quarterback.
I think they're going to keep him and get rid of Trace. You don't need 3 quarterbacks.
We'll see.
Whichever one you can get 3rd
Well,
round
I
pick
mean,
for.
I'll be honest with you. This year proved it with everything happening. This year proved that we were the beneficiaries of having 3 quarterbacks.
Yeah, but we're going to need other players to bring in than to have 3 quarterbacks. You can always sign one and bring it in.
And our goal is to win the Super Bowl. You will never win a Super Bowl with your backup quarterback, so it doesn't matter if you're your 2nd, 3rd,
Chad
or 5th.
Henne might tell you different.
So is this the year?
Nick Foles might tell you different.
Could this be the year if you feel Huntley's made that leap, right? Could this be the year? What's one of the things that we talked about with McSorley? We originally thought McSorley could play a role in this offense that was similar to Taysom Hill.
Someone might trade for him.
Yeah, if you can get 3rd for either one of those backup quarterbacks, you take it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if you can get that, in my opinion, that's a steal for
I'm
the
sorry,
fact that they don't have.
I watched the game at the end because I had nothing to do at work, and Todd, he was standing there with poise like he's been there for like 5
You mean Tyler
years.
Huntley?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, give him nicknames.
Yeah.
Ty was just
Todd,
saying
hey
that.
Todd,
I thought you said Todd. I was like,
it's draft
I'm
season, so he's
sorry.
already in that. Todd, hey Todd.
He's going to give Lamar a run for his money. He's got a better arm.
No,
He's a little bit slower.
no, that's no.
Okay.
All I can say about this is what the only thought that can pop in my head is this. Let's remember that DaCosta got a really good draft pick for Kyrie Vedvik.
Yes.
If he can convince it, you know what I mean? Like, who knows what anyone could pay for one of these backup.
You're right. Well, in bigger news, I guess the more for me, like, even though I knew this was coming, it was a little emotional for me. Like, Mark Ingram was released officially by the Ravens, and I know he was only here for 2 seasons, but his impact with this team from a leadership standpoint, from an emotional leader standpoint, it was strong. His impact was very, very strong within this locker room and within the Ravens community. He's one of those really super likable guys. Like, there's just nothing that you could say negative about Mark Ingram. And I know we were critical on him the last couple of weeks, and not so much on him, just more so where he kind of ranked in the pecking order of running backs that we have, because we have such good depth. He's just on a roster full of talent, and he is unfortunately the odd man out. And when you get to counting your dimes and nickels and pennies when it comes to cap space. Like, that's $5 million that you save by getting rid of Ingram. So I understand the business move behind it, but doesn't mean I'm not going to miss this guy. And I'm curious to see like what kind of impact this has on the locker room, not having a guy like him around.
Yeah, I mean, he came in. We saw the immediate impact day one when he's here. We went through the big trust. We went through all that stuff. And hats off to him because he was the vocal, emotional, frontline leader of this squad last year. This year, I think you saw a little transition in that. We weren't hearing as much from him. But that also came down to production, right? His production when he was on the field just wasn't there. And it's the reason that Drew over there kept calling for Dobbins. Feed Dobbins, feed Dobbins, feed Bus, feed Gus the Bus. His production wasn't there. And I think that played a role in two things. Obviously, it played a role. They recognized, hey, like we gotta feed the guys that are producing.
Yeah.
But the other side to that is I respect that he stepped back and he let those two running backs and was okay with, hey, I understand I'm inactive. It's what we're here to win. Last week before the game,
he never put himself ahead of the team.
Exactly. Last week before the game, he was asked about it. He said, look, I'm here to win. And if my role in this team is to step back and let somebody else step up, then that's what it is. It's on me to go through that production. And I think that's one of those things that while it didn't exactly come across, I think that did take a little bit of an emotional toll on him.
Yeah.
Because I think he recognized what we've been talking about in that he's maybe reaching the end of his career. And I see Nick says, will Ingram get picked up by another team?
I think Ingram will. I don't think that this is the last stop for Ingram. I think he can still be a productive back. Will he be a number one back? I think that's a stretch. His 1,000-yard rushing seasons, I think, are kind of are behind.
He'll never
him.
be a bell cow.
No, I don't think he will, but he can add some veteran leadership, and I think he'd be a good change of pace back. But to that point, Hayden Hurst today posted a tweet of him and Ingram together when they were together with the Ravens, saying, "Hey, you could always come here." And and Mark had the eyeballs, like, "Oh, maybe." So maybe there's a connection. And Atlanta needs a running back bad.
Yeah.
Like something fierce.
Yeah, but
there's teams out there.
He can't be their number one back with the production.
No, I still think the Falcons are going to end up either signing somebody else in free agency or drafting somebody. But again, he could be that mentor, that leader, that number two running back if they do use a high draft pick on a running back to be, somebody to kind of ease that guy into his role, just like he did with J.K. Dobbins here.
Yeah, I mean, the Atlanta Falcons, feel really highly of Hayden Hurst, and not only just his abilities, they like his abilities, but they also like him as a person. With that whole video that we talked about, them putting getting behind him and putting that out. Maybe you're right. Maybe Hayden's got a little bit of pull down there in Atlanta that he can get the conversation at least started,
right?
And be able to kind of move things along and say, this is a guy that I trust. I think he, even if he doesn't put the
big trust.
Exactly. But I think it's that obviously wouldn't go down there. The Ravens should have coined that if they didn't already.
Yeah. Well, kudos to Ingram, and again, and we appreciate the 2 years that you gave us. I mean, last year. The amount of production that he had in this offense was second to none.
And he's
just a great guy overall.
His thank you too, and we didn't address it straight out, but he says, thank you, Mr. Bisciotti and the Ravens, for being a first-class organization. I love the real ones in Flock Nation that supported me and showed love. My blood brothers, what's understood ain't got to be explained. Best is still ahead. Can't wait. Watch gotta work. Look, he's already defied the odds. He's 31 years old at this point.
No. The shelf life of running back is like 3 or 4 years in the NFL on average.
Don't tell Frank Gore that.
He's another one. He's a.
I don't think we
and Adrian Peterson.
I don't think we ever we never were just straight out release Mark. I think we all said we saw the writing on the wall, and if Mark knew it was best for the team and saw what was put in front of him, that he would recognize that. And I think we really saw that towards the end of the year where he did step back, and he stepped into the shadows to really let these guys shine and let the leaders come out that are going to be here next year. Let's see who's going to come out. Let's see what's going to happen. And so while nobody fully jumped into that role just yet, maybe there's some guys that come out of this and wind up learning from his leadership and putting it on their back.
Well, we know Mark Ingram's not going to be a part of this team, so let's look forward to 2021. We've already talked about some of this stuff, but I really want – I know what we want, right? I know what James wants. James does not want Harbaugh as a coach. James doesn't want Greg Roman as an offensive coordinator. I know what we all want, but what do we think realistically will happen this year? And we'll start with the coaching. We'll start with John Harbaugh. I think this is a pretty easy answer. John Harbaugh is back in 2021.
Yeah, I mean his job's safe. He got his team to the divisional round of the playoffs after starting the season in rough. He rallied this team. He worked them into a situation. Do I think he has some things to answer for personally? 100%. And hopefully those will be addressed in the offseason.
Right. Yeah. So for me, John Harbaugh is a lock. Safe. 2021. Ryan, you agree?
Yeah, he's a lock.
James,
Lock.
a lock. All right.
Drew, do you agree?
Lockdown in the
That came through clearly.
Drew's draining the main vein. Drew, real quick.
I would have been back in here if I wasn't looking for that milkshake beer.
That's the last one.
I know. I would have been back.
Real quick. Harbaugh 2021. He's back or no?
Yeah.
Okay. Pretty easy. Unanimous
All
across
right,
the board.
so-
the one that's going to bring up the debate.
Right. So so let's look. Greg Roman. For me, I think it's stale. There's a history. You're in to the point where he gets to this point with a quarterback, especially a mobile or semi-mobile quarterback, and it's like he hits a wall. I think there's a proven pattern. If this was his first one, I probably would be giving him a pass and saying, all right, let's see give him another year. Maybe it's that extra, you can have a year of being wrong or not fully getting it right, but you learn from it, you move on. This is now 3 straight teams that it's the same story after the second full
You're
year.
explaining your thought process, but what do you think actually happens?
Yeah, we already did that last segment,
Yeah.
Scott.
I think he's done.
You think he's done?
I think he's done.
Okay. See, for me, I just think that I don't think the Ravens are going to make that drastic of a move. I think that the Ravens will shift some of their focus and some of their money from the defensive side of the ball and focus their assets on offense and developing more weapons around Lamar. I'm not saying they're going to go out there and spend $20 million and get, Allen Robinson like we all hope that they do.
Yes, Allen Robinson.
I would love to have
get to
Allen
that.
Robinson
Chill.
here.
We'll get there.
But I do think that they'll spend more assets on the offense, and I think Greg Roman's on a very, very short leash. This could be a la, was it 2012, the year that we won the Super Bowl, where we saw Jim Caldwell replaced in the middle of the year, and then they went on the Super Bowl run. Or no, we saw, what was his name? Cameron. Cameron was replaced by Caldwell. Then we went on the Super Bowl run.
Yeah.
We could see a similar situation like that in this year, that if they're 3/4 of the way through the year, halfway through the year, and the offense isn't putting up the numbers that they expect, maybe that James Urban thing comes into play. Maybe they get rid of Greg Roman midseason and then promote James Urban and see if there's any kind of a change. Maybe that happens. I don't know, but I think that Greg Roman's safe going into 2021. Ryan, what do you think?
I think there's a chance you lose Greg Roman, but if you do, it's late for one of 2 reasons. We already talked about the one. Eric Bieniemy was still floated out there, and he reaches out and comes. Number 2 is you reach out to all these top wide receiver options, and they all tell you that I'm not coming to a Greg Roman offense.
Right.
And if you get that answer, he's going to put on the shelf, because we figured out we can't win without him. So you got to go find somebody they will play for. So Eric Bieniemy or bust is kind of my answer. Greg Roman, Eric Bieniemy. That's it.
So do you think Greg Roman starts the season as the offensive coordinator? Yes or no?
I did the Scott thing, didn't I?
Yes. You did.
Screw you, asshole!
Answer the question.
I think he's back.
You think he's back?
I think he's back.
All right, James, what do you think?
He'll be back, and then when we have the same shit going on next year, they're both going to be gone next year.
Okay. That's a bold pick. And listen, if we get to the same point and have the same result, first round of playoffs next year, Harbaugh could be in hot water at that point.
Living legend. Dump Roman quicker than burritos and prune juice.
Well, apparently they posted the strength of schedule, and we're like number 2 for the.
We're gonna talk about that as well. Drew, what do you think?
I don't think anything changes. I think he's here. I mean, regrettably, Ryan's got me sold. I'll at least say that. I love Ryan's thought process.
Right.
I can't really say
all the best case scenarios in Ryan's process.
I
Allen
can't
Robinson.
Like, yeah, Bieniemy is the OC and Robinson is the wide receiver. I love it.
Super Bowl.
I think he'll be here next year.
Okay.
I'm not necessarily that I want that. I've had the thought process, and I thought about it a lot today because I knew we were going to talk about it. But my usually the thought process when it comes to OCs is you don't want to have a lot of turnover.
Right.
And that's a good thing. Like, it is because
But we historically
have a lot
have.
of turnover.
And we have. But
To the detriment of Flacco's career, in my opinion.
and that's usually I'm on that thought process, but at some point you're getting too stale. And if you're gonna keep staying stale, and it's like maybe it has to wait till next season, and maybe it does cost more than just the OC's job, but it just at some point, like, you've gotta progress.
I get that.
Can't say it enough.
I get that, but he did go 25-7 in the regular season over the last 2 years. It's hard to argue against this. I get it. The playoff success hasn't been there, but they were 25-7 over 2 years in this system.
And look at these fan names. We got Gary Kubiak. We got Cam Cameron.
God, I would give my left testicle to have Gary Kubiak back.
Really?
Oh my God!
Somebody else
yes.
here going, why are we going backwards? We've already had these
Somebody
guys.
else said. I think somebody else just said Tressman. Like they'd rather have
No.
Tressman back. I'm like,
This is what I'm
That's
saying.
Ryan
Like,
Billick. He's supposed to be an offensive genius.
we as Ravens fans have short memories. Like Marty Morningwig couldn't even get 2 words formed together in a freaking press conference. Like, we've had some real idiots at offensive coordinator.
And he got fired up at the Eagles.
Right. Gary Kubiak was the best thing to ever happen to Joe Flacco and ever happened to that Ravens offense the year that he was here. I would literally sell my left testicle for that to happen.
So
again.
Adit says David Culley should be gone if the Texans don't hire him. He's the passing coordinator. Here's the deal. You can be a passing coordinator, but if your offensive coordinator isn't calling the passing plays properly or getting, if you're so vanilla with everything, then it's on your coordinator at that point. I don't know if it's David Culley. I don't know if it's Greg Roman. I think the way you find out would be if Roman goes away, you go to David Culley. But I think James Urban is the better option there either way.
He's go to whoever said that. Yeah, there you go. Fuck the regular season. The playoffs matter way more, and we will not go anywhere with this system. We will be a great regular season team under this system. You have to get through the regular season to get to the playoffs.
We almost forgot that this year.
Right. If you take Lamar Jackson, like Lamar Jackson is the single biggest difference maker on this offense, regardless of Greg Roman. You take Lamar Jackson out of the picture, and this team is a 500 or even below 500 team, right? I agree with you that we got to see advancements and things need to change, but there's no guarantee that replacing Greg Roman's going to equal success. There's other things that need to happen along with that move, corresponding moves, and this offense success is going to be predicated around having a true, real, legit number one receiver, and until they fix that problem, just changing the offensive coordinator doesn't improve this team enough. In my opinion, it doesn't.
But also, on the flip side, if we would have had a different schedule, I don't think we would have made the playoffs. I don't think our team was capable. We had the easiest 4 to 5 games to play.
We did have
a decent schedule this year for sure.
Now, don't get me wrong. If we're
play who's on the schedule.
If we're playing the NFC, we're winning division every year.
Yeah, NFC's terrible. All right, so we talked about Greg Roman. I know that's the hot button topic right now for everybody. Flip to the other side of the ball, and I kind of mentioned this earlier. Wink Martindale was a hot topic last year as far as coaching, potential head coaching jobs elsewhere. He had interviewed for a couple of jobs. We were nervous that we might lose him, even though we usually have success in replacing defensive coordinators with the next man up and usually being all right. But were you surprised that he didn't get any, talk about head coaching jobs this year, especially after the season that they had?
I think the issue that comes into play is the inability to stop Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
If the defense stopped Patrick Mahomes, his phone's ringing off the hook because you figured out how to beat the one guy nobody truly knows how to beat on a regular basis. The one thing I would say that he's got that I'm surprised that people aren't calling is, historically, for the most part, defenses ended up winning championships.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen it. We know it. Historically, that happens. Why not get a guy that's won the top 5 defense in league, really top 3 defense in league, 2.5, 3 years in a row now? Why would you not do that? Why would you not say, I want this guy to be here? It's for 2 reasons. 1, because he never stopped Mahomes. And 2, because we're in the era of the mobile quarterback. Everybody is seeing that. That's why your offensive coordinators are going to be getting the calls first. Because everybody wants to get an offensive coordinator that's going to be able to run that type of scheme and run that type of offense. Because
everybody sees the success of the Chiefs, and it's a copycat league. Everybody wants to have that same type of success.
Well, you're seeing it from the Chiefs. You're seeing the ability with, as much as I hate to say it, he's not, I wouldn't necessarily define him as a mobile quarterback, but it's working. Things are clicking with Baker Mayfield, and when he's able to do everything, Josh Allen, it's working for. Look at that whole class of guys. Look at where they are. We talked about how these guys are young, and it's working. This type of scheming is working, even if it's just short term. It's working to gear you towards championship games. Why would you not look at those offensive coordinators that are putting these guys in these positions and running this style of offense because it's working? That's my opinion on why Wink Martindale is not getting the calls.
I think, but do you think Wink Martindale is back then? Because he's not getting the interest. You see him back as defensive coordinator next year.
Yeah, unless somebody is super desperate and for some reason wants to focus on their defense. Yeah.
These head coaching jobs are going quickly. They're already being filled. There's 2 spots left. Nobody has contacted the Ravens about those 2 spots. It's with Wink. I think Wink back. I don't even think that's up for debate. Ryan, do you think Wink's back next year?
We want him back, and nobody seems to be begging, so he's back.
Yeah. James?
He'll be back, but I don't believe on just the offense because 2 defensive coach. One went to the Detroit Lions. He's a linebacker coach for the Saints.
Right.
And then the other guy from the Rams went to the Chargers. He just went to the next locker room over.
Yeah.
That was pretty entertaining.
Right. No,
that's also 2 teams that don't know what the fuck they're doing right now.
Drew, what do you think?
Wink stays.
Should stay. Okay. All right, so let's break down some areas of need to address, maybe through free agency.
We might as well start because he's itching over
draft.
I know we can't go to Cam on him because it's broken. We'll fix that later. All right, Ryan, go ahead. Who do you want at wide receiver?
I only got 2 options. It's Allen Robinson and Kenny Galladay, and after that, I'm not excited about anybody else. There's a lot of good receivers, but you want a true number 1. Those are the number 1s. Right. Everybody else are good number 2s. We got number 2s. We got number 2s for days.
Allen Robinson put up over 1,200 receiving yards with Mitch Trubisky and Nick Foles throwing him the fucking football. Like, that's insane. But he's going to require probably $18 to $20 million a year. It's a lot of money, right?
It's a lot of money. You better be passing him the ball.
So that's you're going to have to rob Peter to pay Paul. You're not going to. The Ravens right now are projected to have about $10 million in cap space right now, and that's with the Mark Ingram releasing and all that stuff. $10 million in cap space right now. If the Ravens are going to invest in somebody like that, they're going to have to cut themselves short somewhere. So bye-bye Matt Judon. No contract for Yannick. Do you sell yourself short on both pass rushers to go after and invest that money and shift it to the other side of the ball and get that number 1 receiver?
If you're going to do that, and this is
not saying that there's not other. So I know
there's other options.
There's other ways of maneuvering money around. I get that, but it's a lot of money for one player, and they're going to have a lot of holes that they need to fill.
If that's the case, then and you can say this about anything. If that's the case, you better have a plan at pass rusher, and you alluded to it earlier. If you're not going to sign either of these guys because you're going to invest in getting Lamar a weapon, then there's 2 things that have to happen during the draft.
Yeah.
You got to secure up your O-line in that draft because at that point, who knows if you sign one of them, then now can you afford Orlando Brown? There's a lot of different things happening, but the other side of that is you don't do that, then you got to get these guys in the draft, and you're going to wind up giving up those draft picks that we covet as an organization. You're going to need to give up a few to be able to trade up and get a top-tier edge rusher in this draft.
If you want somebody to be impactful as an edge rusher, as a rookie, they're in that top
15
picks. Yeah. Right now, the Ravens are sitting at number 27 overall. I'm not saying they can't get a pass rusher at number 27 because they probably could. But again, to get that true impactful pass rusher,
the guy that can come out day one,
that can be ready to go day one, you're going to need that top 15 type of pick. And I just don't know if the Ravens will be able to give up that kind of capital to get into that area and go after a top 15. Go ahead, Ryan.
A deet from YouTube here. Corey Davis and Curtis Samuel, good option instead of Robinson.
So I think those are great options as far as value picks, but they don't do anything for me as a true number one.
Yeah, they weren't the number one where they were. So why would they be the number one here? Like Corey Davis and Curtis Samuel, there'd be an argument. Are they the number one versus Marquise Brown? Especially Curtis Samuel. Corey Davis probably, but he never really showed up anything until he was the number two. When he had somebody show up and be the man, he played much better as the number two. We don't have anybody to take that coverage off him. He's going just like he did 2 years ago.
So one of the things that one of Lamar's deficiencies, right, is his accuracy and his inconsistency with his placement of the balls at times, especially on deeper throws down the field. You need that true number one physical receiver that can make up for those deficiencies, that can go up and get a ball that's not thrown right on target or uses physicality to get better position. Those types of things, you need that as a true number one. These guys don't do that for me, but an Allen Robinson does. But the reason Allen Robinson does that, he's because he's that physical guy, and it's going to cost a lot of money.
Yeah, it's gonna wind up hurting you in the long run. And I didn't see, because I know that you were scrolling through, how many times has Nick Short mentioned AB?
About 4,000 times. Okay. And also, a lot of people are giving me hell about Kenny Galladay being injury prone. I agree. I just think that you're going to get him significantly less money than Allen Robinson. So
significant, I don't know,
3 to 5 million,
maybe. Go ahead, Drew.
Well, no, I think Kenny Galladay will still have a lot to prove. To call him injury prone, I won't say that. He had in his walk year. Yes, he was injured all year long, and
he hated his situation.
It sucked. He also hated his situation. That's the kind of guy where, yes, if he plays the year out, he's commanding in the 20 range,
right?
Average salary. But with a prove-it deal, and I'm not saying it has to be 1 year, and it might only suck to only get a guy for a rental. But dude, Kenny Galladay is one of the best route runners in the league, and can put up. I mean, last year he had, I don't know if it was the lead or the tie for touchdowns.
Yeah. So our boy Dominic, and you took the words right out of my mouth. So if we're looking at somebody in the NFL and we're looking at somebody who might be available at number 27 overall, Allen Robinson's the big name free agent that I'd love to go after and get, but the money might not be there. So if you're looking for value and getting a guy in the draft, Rashad Bateman, wide receiver from Minnesota, would be a huge pick at number 27, I think, for the Ravens. Another big body physical receiver. We saw him play quite a few times, in the Big Ten.
Didn't play very well this year versus the Terps.
He didn't play very well this year against the Terps, but
a freshman shut him down.
Well, yes and no. The quarterback's play sucked at Minnesota, too. Rashad Bateman is a very good receiver. So, Dominic, you read my mind. I like that guy a lot. Then we talked about this a little bit earlier, too. The loss of Hayden Hurst and never really replacing Hayden Hurst. I mean, we just threw bodies out there, especially when Nick Boyle went down. We were just signing anybody off the street that had any kind of tight end resemblance.
Yeah, I mean,
we got to get another pass-catching tight end.
Well, and the other thing is you got to also make sure that Boyle's healthy, right? And coming back from the injury, and he's healthy, he's good to go, and he's going to be able to run the way that he can. And I think you need Boyle. I think made an evolution. As long as that continues when he comes back, I think you're good. I think he'll still be a good blocker either way. But I think you need a solid pass-catching tight end. You need to find a potential another Mark Andrews, because we've proven in this system you technically don't need a true number one when you've got 3 tight end sets that you're running out there, because Mark Andrews becomes your number one. That's what happened that year. We all said it. He was your best wide receiver, and he's not a wide receiver. And I get what you're saying, but he was able to be physical because he was able to be open, because you had another guy that was a threat in Hayden Hurst that they could get to the ball.
But you need that true physical outside receiver, which Miles Boykin should be but isn't. Like, we need to fill that role. And I'm not sure who said it. Alex, I think, was the one who said it. I get, like, the whole we failed so many times in drafting wide receivers, and I'm with you, man. I agree. Like, Hollywood Brown,
The Riddler is
the verdict is still out on him. I don't think he's a terrible pick, but man, there were a lot of better receivers that we picked Hollywood over.
DK.
DK Metcalf being one of them.
Yeah.
Oh God, talk about physical.
We're
Jesus.
talking Nick Boyle as a guarantee comeback. I was listening to 105.7 earlier. Hadn't really seen this before, but Nick Boyle's cap hit's over $7 million next year.
Yeah,
they can save an awful lot of money cutting, and they were saying you could even cut him and probably re-sign him for half that money because nobody's gonna be out there looking for probably a backup tight end for $7 million. Nobody's gonna be doing that.
We tried a few backup tight ends, and it was a rotational door at tight end.
But he would come back here for $4 million before he goes somewhere else for $4 million. So you could cut him, bring him back for
if he's willing to do that.
Yeah.
Or you sign him to an extension that reworks the contract and allows him to do that and lets you kind of go on from that point.
Thomas said exactly what I was saying earlier. Hollywood can be a game changer as a number 2. Got to get a true number 1 to free him up, and I couldn't agree with you more. And that's why I think
Curtis Samuel doesn't work for me.
Curtis Samuel is another number 2. I think he's a good option, but you need that true number 1. And Allen Robinson is the only one on the free agent market that fills that void for me.
If Curtis Samuel replaces Snead for us, awesome.
Right.
But he can't be the only guy we bring in. If you bring in a true number 1 and somehow Curtis Samuel sneaks by to replace Snead, we're looking like the Chiefs next year. Just weapons everywhere.
Speaking of Snead, I because his name got brought up at this point, what was your take on his post-game interview where he talked about Lamar knows he's got some things he's got to work on, right? And to have, this is a guy is a veteran who they've all looked at as a leader because he's got the experience. He played with arguably one of the best quarterbacks to play the game.
Right.
And here he's giving them the advice and saying he's got a long way to go.
He was talking about, because if you actually read the whole interview, because the highlights, the clippings that they put in there made it look like Willie Snead was kind of painting Lamar into a corner.
It wasn't, but it was at the same time.
I think he was just saying that Lamar is a worker, right? We talked about this last year that like he lives, breathes, eats, sleeps, shit football. Like that's it, and he is a competitive.
He wants to get
guy.
better.
He wants to be the best, and I think that's what Willie Snead was saying is that don't put this past him. This isn't going to bend or break Lamar. Lamar is just going to put in more work and come out better next year in the offseason. So I didn't have anything to say about that, but we had mentioned the pass rush, right? And we got that mid-season trade or a little after mid-season trade to go out and get a guy like Yannick, who we expected all these things and to give us the extra pass rush that we were missing. It didn't come to fruition. I understand that, yes, he put pressure on and there's a lot of pressures, but at the end of the day, there weren't results.
He wasn't getting home. He wasn't getting home, and I agree with that. But on that flip side, let me ask you this. If he's not out there, does Pernell McPhee get home the way that he did?
No, I mean, listen, I understand there were some perks to him, but listen, you're talking about a guy who's going to probably demand
he's going to cost you
a ton of money on the free agent market. You got the question mark with Matt Judon, who's now coming off of his franchise tag deal. If you're gonna pay anybody, you're only gonna pay one of them. So who is it? Or again, are you not paying either one of these guys? Are you re-signing Tyus Bowser, bringing back Pernell McPhee on another 1-year deal, hopefully drafting a good pass rusher in the draft high, and then spending that money that you would have spent on one of those top pass rushers on that wide receiver?
Did it hurt Yannick to come here and still not put out the numbers per se? Did that hurt his chances at that
whole season
large
hurt
contract?
Yannick. Yeah. This season in Minnesota hurt Yannick. This season here hurt Yannick.
But because of that, does he not get paid?
Lev Bell and got paid more. If he would have sat on his butt at home, he'd be getting paid next year. But because he played this year and didn't look good, I don't know if we're right he's getting top-tier money. I don't franchise tag either one of these guys.
No.
I would offer them
I'm offering Yannick a contract. I'm not offering Judon.
I offer him number 10 pass rusher in the league money, whatever that is.
Right.
And that's it. And if you don't want it, go somewhere else and we'll figure it out.
Right. I agree. Go ahead, James.
I just feel like I don't think the Ravens going to pay anybody this year. I'm talking about like offense and defense wise. Like they're not going to pay Judon. They're not going to pay Yannick. I think they're going to just sit back, see what we do in the draft, fill in the needs, and then I think you're going to see from the defense shift to the offense the following year. I think they're going Go after.
That's Lamar's final year.
Yeah, you're going to have to. That's the other question: is when do you pay Lamar?
I don't see you paying Lamar right now. He hasn't shown me why we should pay him.
I know we're getting into that. I think potentially later, but one thing I did want to bring up, I think it was Joseph says EDC has a very tough job at decisions. I think
he does, and that's what we're trying to reiterate here is that there are a lot of decisions. And listen, we got a long off season, so we're going to get more in depth with each one of these things as this goes on. We're trying to paint the picture. There's a lot of decisions that they're going to have.
There's a lot to juggle. There's a lot of balls in the air right now.
Right, for sure. And I mean, even the running back position, which was obviously a strong point for us going into this year, you obviously release Mark Ingram, right? So that you're down one back there. Gus Edwards, I think he has one more year deal.
He's restricted.
Yeah. So he's got one more year here if the Ravens pick up, obviously, which they will, this tender. After that, you're going to have a decision that you're going to have to make, because I get it. Like Justice Hill, he's our third option. But if Gus goes and gets paid elsewhere.
Yeah.
Is Justice Hill really your number two?
No. Or are you grabbing somebody in the draft?
Right. So are you spending yet another draft pick this year? Not a number two, maybe not a second-round pick like they got J.K. Dobbins this year.
We've talked
about that.
Nobody
projected that.
That was a steal.
That was a steal.
You could not pass him up.
Exactly. And it was a great deal, and I think that's going to pay dividends for the next 3 years for the Ravens, and then he's going to get paid by somebody else. That's just my opinion. That's just my opinion.
Don't fucking break my heart.
I just think that's going to happen, especially when you get into the latter ends of Lamar's extension, too. So the running back position isn't a clear-cut done deal that the Ravens are not going to draft somebody because the Ravens historically don't pay money for running backs. Mark Ingram was the exception, and I think part of that was because of his leadership quality, because the team had just gutted all of their leadership that year before. Yes, it was a production thing, but I think more so it was value. They got him for like $5 million a year, and he could come in and be a leader right away, and that was a huge impact that Mark Ingram had.
Yeah, I don't know that maybe there is another guy out there that can do that, but I don't know that there's a guy that you need to do that. If Gus is there, look, there's a lot to be said for what JK brings to the table, what Gus brings to the table. Somebody's going to be willing, if he puts out again next year, somebody's going to be willing to pay Gus.
Right.
Somebody's going to be willing to pay him, and he's not going to get top tier money, but he'll get paid more than the Ravens are willing to put out for him.
He has proven his value that he should be a number one back somewhere.
Exactly. But he's not a top five running back in the league. But to your point, he's going to go be somebody's number one running back, and it's going to work out for them. And they're going to get a hell of a guy in him. But my issue with this is, if you go Justice Hill and he is your guy, I don't know that this offense sustains next year or the following year after next year.
Yeah,
because
that's what I'm saying. Like this year, we're all right. If we just get by with the three of those guys, right, with Justice Hill, Gus Edwards, and J.K. Dobbins, but you got to always think a year ahead. And if Gus Edwards, if your plan is that we're not going to be able to pay Gus Edwards in the year following, and we know that Justice Hill isn't going to be our number two back in 2 years, do you, again, spend a draft pick this year developing somebody so you have him ready for the following year?
So, I think it really is going to come down to one of the biggest things that you need to decide is, are you all in this coming year in 2021?
I think you're all in every year at this point.
You need to be, but are you going to, when I say all in, like you're going to have to butt up against the salary cap, or you're going to be having to pay the overage penalty, right? That's 75% or whatever it is. My thing with that is you gotta look at what our opponents are next year, right? So let's kind of shift gears a little bit and let's talk about this because I think this plays a role in what you do and what you need to do. So home games, 2021 home games, Chiefs, playoff team, Chargers, okay, Packers, playoff team, Vikings, Colts, almost made playoffs.
Right.
Who's their quarterback?
And we beat them.
Yes, but we had to beat them to get there.
Who's their quarterback? No. Carson Wentz. Still think somehow
Deshaun Watson.
Deshaun Watson.
Anyway. Bengals.
That back.
Then you got the AFC North: Bengals, Browns, and Steelers.
Well, but with Bengals, right? If Joe Burrows comes back, that team could look pretty good.
And the Bengals draft nothing but offensive linemen.
Right. Browns and Steelers, both yet again playoff teams.
Yeah.
Right. So you have all those guys in the playoffs. Our away games: Broncos, Raiders, Bears somehow made the playoffs this year. Lions, Dolphins. Somehow we're in the hunt.
Who's their quarterback?
Deshaun Watson.
I don't know. Yeah, Deshaun Watson, the quarterback of the Dolphins, too, because Tua and Fitzpatrick can't figure out who's playing.
Right. And then you got the Bengals, Browns, and Steelers at home as well. So, James, I know you were looking at something earlier that showed where they ranked this as far as strength of schedule. What did it come up with?
It's number 2.
Toughest schedule or easiest schedule?
Toughest, and the Steelers is number 1.
Yeah. Listen, last year we thought this schedule, we had the easiest schedule going into this year, and things didn't go quite as what we thought they were, and they ended up actually finishing in the middle of the pack as far as strength of schedule goes once everything all played itself out. So a lot of the strength of schedule stuff doesn't mean a whole lot, but yeah.
We keep on playing the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Every year.
To keep playing them until Lamar beats them.
Then start fucking beating them.
Right.
I don't understand.
No, because once you beat them, that's gonna lock it in.
You keep playing them every year, yeah.
Right,
because they'll have won their division, and then we'll play them because they won their division and we won ours.
Right.
But the point in this is going to be a tough schedule going into next year. You're not going to have the kind of margin of error that you had this year where you know that, okay, on the back half of my schedule, even if we're sitting at 6-5, we can still run 5 off and go 11-5 and make the playoffs like they did this year. You're not going to have that option going into this season. This is going to be a very, very tough schedule. The AFC North is so much better now than it was just 2 years ago. Yeah. Like you said, the Bengals, they found their future quarterback, right? The Bengals, I'm not saying that they're going to be a 500 team next year, but
they were clearly better with him.
If they can get some sort of resemblance of an offensive line to protect Joe Burrow, they've got good pieces. They've got a decent running back. They've got good wide receivers. Joe Burrow is the real deal. I think they can be competitive. Baker Mayfield and the Cleveland Browns have put things together. Quarterback.
Do they do it again next year is the question.
Right. I think they will. I think that I told you before this season started, that I thought the Browns were a potential playoff team, and it just so happened to work out that way. I think that they will be a good team for years to come. Steelers are obviously the wild card because Big Ben, he's done, right? At this point, he's done. So who's the quarterback in Pittsburgh? Do they pull a deal for a Deshaun Watson?
They don't have the
Certainly
money.
not Mason Rudolph.
Hope.
They don't have the
it's
money
not
now.
Mason Rudolph. It's not Duck. It's not any of those guys. You're right. They're in cap hell. But if Ben Roethlisberger walks away, that frees up a decent amount of money.
But they need a center because Pouncey's
We need a
retiring.
center.
Right.
They're retiring. You got paid Dupree or he walks.
Right.
And they don't have a tight end.
Eric Ebron.
Well, they bring him back.
I don't know.
And they had no running back.
Yeah, I think the Steelers are bad. 7-9.
Yeah, they could be the last place between. To be honest, I think they're going to be fighting with the Bengals.
What's sad is their schedule would still be good enough in the NFC East.
But the thing
7-9,
is,
they're like they won the division.
All right.
the Steelers don't have a running back.
I haven't asked any of you this real quick. I don't want any explanations.
Okay.
I just want answers. Way too early 21 prediction. Ravens record, and where do they finish in the AFC North? That's all I want's an answer.
Is there 17 games though?
We'll just say 16-game season.
Okay.
10-6.
Okay.
Another wild card spot.
Where do they finish in the
Second.
rankings? Second in the AFC North?
Yeah.
Ryan.
That's exactly where I was. 10-6 second.
James.
7-9.
7-9.
Fucking doom and gloom.
Third or fourth?
Oh man, did we cut Tucker?
Damn it.
7-9. Okay.
I think with the whole.
I don't want an explanation.
All right.
7-9, third or fourth in the AFC North.
Yeah.
Drew.
All you can suck it.
Where you got them?
13-3.
13-3. I like it.
All right.
They win the AFC North?
Win the AFC North. And guess what?
they
The Browns.
don't, holy
The Browns go back to mediocrity.
Browns.
Okay.
All right. So you asked everybody, what's yours then?
11-5. I think we're in the same position. 11-5, second in the AFC North, another wild card. I think the
So
Browns.
who pulls out?
The
You think the Browns pull
I
out
think the
first?
Browns win the division. Pittsburgh finishes third, maybe even fourth. I think Pittsburgh's going to be the mighty at fall. We said the Pittsburgh Steelers
the
were
Browns at second also, right, Scott?
Huh?
Are you the Browns winning the division too in your scenario?
I did, but it was so. Well, I guess technically you did too.
Yeah,
if you said
we
the
both-
same thing.
yeah.
But yeah,
Three of us say the Browns have won or winning the division next year.
Yeah, I legit think that because it's not the
I didn't even think
Steelers.
about that. I was just like, second.
The Steelers were the worst 11-0 team in history this year, right?
Clearly.
And they've completely, shit the bed the second half of the season, and they're losing their Hall of Fame quarterback. And unless they bring in a guy like a Deshaun Watson, nobody's going to have an immediate impact. They're not picking until 20th in the draft or somewhere around there, like the high 20s. They're not going to get a day one starting quarterback at the 20th slot in this draft. The good quarterbacks are all going to be gone in the top 6 or 7 picks. The Steelers are going to fall. They could be struggling with the Bengals for that 3rd or 4th spot. I wouldn't be surprised if the Bengals finish better than the Steelers next year, even though the Steelers have such a great defense.
If
You forgot the schedule.
If they're already in cap hell, right? So if they're already in cap hell, that's going to be the other thing is if they weren't in cap hell, they would have the ability to, I think they would have the ability to kind of say, all right, we can leverage a little bit of future draft picks to go get one of those guys because they could wind up paying one of those guys.
Right.
Now, I don't know that that's the case because I think they're going to need to sign a lot of these guys to protect. They're going to need a lot of these guys for the future, which means then who the fuck are you getting at quarterback?
Right.
Because the guys that are going to be free agents are going to trade. It's going to cost you just as much.
What are some of our BSers out there saying, Ryan? What do we got? Chuck says Browns go 10-6 next year.
We got 13-3 for the Ravens.
Living legend.
Hopefully 13-3 from Joe, but 11. He's realistic as 11-5.
Nick Short says Ravens 1, Clowns 2, Bungles 3, Squealers 4. I like it.
Yep.
It's kind of the basic
That's
ones.
pretty much it.
That's pretty much it. All right. All right, it's time for our playoff predictions, which unfortunately do not include the Ravens any longer. But we're down to 2 games.
We forgot to change the pick there. Oh well.
Yeah, I did.
Some
forget
of
to
those
update that
teams
one.
are still available.
Yeah, can you figure out which teams are and aren't available anymore? All right, so we got 2 games. We got 4 teams left.
Point them out for us, Fred.
Yeah, I can't do that. The green screen thing, no, I can't do it. This one is still in it.
Nailed it, Fred.
Hold on. First game.
This one,
And this one.
There we go.
These two face each other.
Terrible.
Your guys are bad weather girls.
Yeah,
Better than Fred.
could never be a weather girl.
Oh man. So first game, 3:05 on Fox. Which before we get in, I know we talked about it in our chat. I love the Fox 8K camera on the
I do
touchdown
too.
celebrations.
It's like basically a selfie video camera because it just focuses.
well,
in
but
on the
they
coach
need
player.
to put it on a steady cam, by the way, because the guy that was running around was like shaking as he
Or
was
not
running.
selfie. I didn't mean selfie. Portrait is what
Right,
it
it's
reminds
portrait
me.
mode almost.
What they
Yeah.
need to do is just use it all the time. Why are we watching anything else?
Because the whole point of it is it blurs the things and keeps the thing
It
in
wouldn't be
focus.
able to do that for
you
an
would see
entire
the
wide
quarterback
shot.
throw the ball and you wouldn't see who catches it. That's
Right.
why.
Exactly.
So,
but I do love that.
I love the 8K cam. I think it's great, and there's a bunch of different companies that are
Hell
using it
says
now.
16-0. I love you. That's awesome, Jake.
Jake Martin.
I believe that's my parents' neighbor's son, Jake Martin. Welcome to
That's
the show.
hilarious.
Never seen you watch before.
What's going on, Jake? I love the optimism, man. That's awesome.
So Sunday 3:05 on Fox, we've got the two, old guns going at it, and we thought old guns last week, and we're seeing it this year. But one of those old guns is playing it at an MVP level.
Yeah.
No argument from me. So we got the Bucks going up to Green Bay, playing the Packers. Now you had Tom Brady was saying this past week about how it's cold up there. I've been getting used to this Florida weather. A little different. Hasn't played the games that he has up in Gillette Stadium. This is going to be another realm for him.
Yeah.
Tom Brady is full of shit. You don't forget how to play in the cold that fast.
Yeah.
The rest of his players do.
No, but when your home games are played in cold weather, and then you go play in cold weather, you're already used to it. But when your body is getting used to that weather, I mean, anybody here gone to Florida in the wintertime?
He'll deflate that ball,
Yeah,
no problem.
You come back, it's a different feel. You're like, oh shit, it's cold.
I do think the weather will play
true.
a factor in this game. And I think Aaron Rodgers is probably one of, if not the best cold weather quarterback of all time. To me, there's no debate on that. Tom Brady looked great this past week against New Orleans and Drew Brees. Like, he looked great. But it was in a 70-degree controlled weather dome, right? You get him out in that frozen tundra in Green Bay. I get it that he played all of his career up in New England. He's used to playing in the cold and all that. I get that. But I do think that Aaron Rodgers, as efficient as he's playing, this Matt LaFleur offense, like, they just look good. They're hitting on all cylinders. I think this will be a close game, and it's going to be the game to watch because this is going to be the one that comes down to who has the ball, the last possession. I think Aaron Rodgers drives down the field with, that 2-minute drive. He comes from behind and wins this game. I think the Packers win 34-31.
I'm not far off from you on that. I do think that it winds up being that last one. But the problem is, I agree with your scenario, minus the fact that they're going to leave Tom Brady too much time on the clock. The other thing that
15 seconds is too much time for Tom Brady. It figures out a way.
There's another thing that I think plays a factor into this game. I liked how the Bucs defense looked against Drew Brees. And I know people said, Brees has lost step, lost vision. He still has a top running back in the league that they were able to do pretty good against stopping the run and then turning around and having the interceptions they did, jumping routes against a Hall of Fame quarterback. This guy, it's not something that Drew Brees lost his vision overnight. Right? This is them studying. They're firing on all cylinders. Offensively, defensively right now. And
Drew Brees can't throw the ball over 20 yards. Aaron Rodgers could throw the ball over 70. So I don't think it's a comparable. We're talking matchups.
I'm still impressed with what their defense
Their defense
did.
is good. I'm not trying to take the credit away from them. Their defense is very good.
But I think their defense plays the difference in this game. I just think Tom Brady does pull it out last minute. It's going to be Bucs 28-21, in my opinion.
Wow. All right, James, who do you got?
I have this game, Packers 41-23.
Oh, wow.
And Scott just forgot, I'm 42, Tom Brady's 43. I'm old, and when it's cold, my body hurts. And he hasn't played in the cold. He's in Florida enjoying his tan and all that. He's going to get effed up, and it's going to hurt, and he's not going to want to throw the ball.
So wrong.
All right, Ryan, what do you got?
All right. First of all, this cold, don't worry about it. This is the plant man.
I saw Kaylee's comment, by the way.
He lives in cryo chambers.
So I know where this pick is going.
Yeah, I mean, of course I need some money because the Bucs are rolling. I'm getting all that money I lost back in the regular season on this nice playoff league Fred invited me to. I'm just running away by stacking my Bucs. I got the Bucs 35-27. Brady doesn't forget how to play in cold. I do think that one of these wide receivers is going to disappear on him, but he's got so many options down there.
Well, one already fell off the board. Antonio Brown is done. I think he's got a groin issue or a hamstring issue, so there's one down.
Did they officially declare him out?
Not officially declared him out, but he looked
He checked
in
himself
rough
out of
shape.
that game, and he don't do that much.
No.
Yeah.
But they do have, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and you can never count out the connection between Brady and Gronkowski, right? So I agree with you. That's why I think this is going to be a close game. Drew, what do you got?
To that point about Evans, you can count probably one catch because Jair Alexander is going to shut his ass down.
I like Alexander.
So if it's anything, it's going to have to be Gronk and Godwin or the weird shit with Scotty Miller. I just want to point that out because Jair Alexander's quickly becoming one of the best shutdown corners in the league. I think it's still under the radar.
But to your point, that same statement,
too, so
that same statement. All
right, so give me Miller. So give me your pick. Who do you got?
Picks 24-19 Packers. I'm just please not fucking Brady.
Did you say your pick, Ryan?
Yeah, I said my pick 35-27.
Okay, I didn't know if you said it.
Plus, we're trying to break the playoff tie here because we're both 8-2 going into this week. So we're on opposite ends on this game. So let's go Pack.
All right, and then the AFC matchup: Bills at the Chiefs. Pat Mahomes going for his second consecutive Super Bowl appearance. Josh Allen just trying to get the Bills to the Super Bowl. How do you see this one shaking out?
Chiefs defense is not what's gotten them to the playoffs.
Nobody talks about the Chiefs and their Chiefs defense.
No, but that's my point.
Right.
And I think
Maybe
you're
math
gonna be able to see Josh Allen, what he was able to do. Now, granted, I know 7 points on the board came from the Bills defense, but the Bills offense, there's just something about them that's special. You guys see the meme of get you somebody that looks at you
Yeah.
like Josh Allen looks at Stephon Diggs.
Yeah.
Diggs go for 2 bills in this game.
Stephon Diggs might have just made Josh Allen an MVP. He's in the conversation. I'm not saying we all agree that it's Aaron Rodgers to lose. But he's the fact that he's even in a conversation. He threw for 1,500 more yards this year and 11% higher completion percentage. Yes, it's Josh Allen improving as a passer, but it's also mostly Stephon Diggs.
Yeah. I look at this. This is their game. They impress me. I think it's going to be a close game. It's not. It's going to be one of those games that you're going to be on edge. But I think the Bills are going to be able to pull this out. I think they're going to go into Arrowhead and they're going to shut them down. Bills Mafia is behind them. I think they're going to win this 30-27.
All right, so I've got this in a very close game, and the only reason that I have this in a close game is because I'm not sure Patrick Mahomes knows his own name at this point.
This is true.
If you saw – what's that?
They say he's doing fine.
That he say he's doing fine. Okay, yeah. I think the rumors or the news that came out afterwards is it really wasn't concussion. It was more so something to do with like either a pinched nerve or he cut like blood flow off to his brain and it got him like almost like a temporary vertigo.
Well, like we were talking about this pre-show. Is I said when they were like, "Oh, look at that hit," I'm like, "What hit?" Yeah. There was no hit.
It was the way.
It was the fact that his neck twisted around like a goddamn owl, and it cut off the circulation, and it was as if he had been knocked out. Like you see some of those guys get knocked out or choked out, and that's what happens. They get up and they get a stagger to them.
I'll say the knockout is a concussion, so choke out is what you mean.
Choke out. Yeah, sorry, a choke out. Yeah. But it's that same thing, cutting off circulation.
And then even prior to that, though, he injured his foot as well. I don't know how his foot is doing.
He did not look good.
It didn't look good. He was kind of hobbling around, but it's still Pat Mahomes. I still think he'll do enough to get this team to the Super Bowl. I am pulling with everything I got for Bills Mafia. I really want to see the Bills go to the Super Bowl, and I want to see them win the Super Bowl. But it's Andy Reid. I think the Chiefs win.
You think McDermott gets outcoached just like every other
I do.
Every other Andy Reid successor has gotten.
Andy Reid, what did he pass for? What was it on 4th down there with Chad Henne as his quarterback? No other fucking
using
coach
the same exact play that they used against somebody else in one.
Quit giving to Eric Bieniemy no credit here. This is why he's going to come home and coach for us.
Let's do it. I'm for it. I got the Chiefs winning this one 24-23. James, what do you got?
I have the Bills winning 37-24. They could do it. And, like, after the game with the Bills,
between
Allen and Diggs, they look like they've been playing together for, like, 10 years and, like, backyard buddies.
Right.
So, they look good.
All right, Drew, what do you got?
I can't wait to watch that, like, just them start having bickering back and forth with when someone becomes a diva and everyone forgets how great Diggs made Allen. Sorry, I don't know. I guess I should have brought that up right there. Sorry.
Do you have the Chiefs winning this game?
No, I got the Bills winning this game.
So all that
yeah, I don't know.
He had a brain part.
I don't know.
What's your score? How close do you have it?
I got the Bills winning. It's not close because I don't know if Mahomes is playing at all. If he's not playing, it was hard to pick the score. I picked the Bills because I'm with Fred. Like I kind of like I want to back the Bills.
Yeah,
like,
I really
for
do.
the fans. Like I want to back for them.
They came down here and got some Jimmy Seafood.
Yeah.
Hey, they won the bet. Good on them.
Well, it's Dave Seafood this week.
36. So yeah, 36-21 Bills.
All right, Ryan, what do you got?
I got Bills 31-24. I just think that Diggs is going to drop 2 bills on these guys. They're going to figure out a way. Who would have thought they could have ran on us last week?
Right.
The running backs for the Chiefs have been nothing, even when Clyde Edwards-Helaire was there. He didn't show up last week. I don't expect him to show up this week.
Surprised. Le'Veon Bell wasn't even a factor in that game.
Almost nothing. Williams was the only one that did anything for him.
They didn't even use him.
And then I also think we do have to get to this, who actually wants Brady to win another Super Bowl? I don't know if I want Brady to win another Super Bowl.
Ryan just wants to win money.
I'm serious. I agree 100%. I want the Bucs to win so I can win money. But I was one of the biggest Brady haters ever. Like, I hated just to look at him in New England. And I was just sick of watching New England win. And I was sick of watching him and his smugness and all this stuff. But kind of watching him like in this fight with Belichick, like who's right. Like I kind of want there to actually be an answer. And if Brady goes and actually finishes the Super Bowl, but Belichick got
to me it's already answered.
Well, but can you really say that when they didn't really get anything? You know, they didn't have much to work with there in New England, and he's
got a former MVP as a quarterback. He was a former MVP.
You might as well call
already
him
on the decline
MVP at this point.
I understand he's a shell of what he was, but he's a former MVP.
He's no Deshaun Watson,
and he did nothing with it. What did they go 6? They go 6-10.
Yeah,
something like that this year.
But the other side to it is he goes down there and he's got guys that are around him. The one thing that I think was interesting, I don't know if you guys saw the Bruce Arians quote this past week in reference when he was asked about Brady
Tom letting him coach.
Yeah, and so I snapshotted it because I wanted to bring this up as we talked about this. His statement was, New England didn't allow him to coach. I allow him to coach. I just sit back sometimes and watch.
He's a 43-year-old Hall of Fame, one of the greatest quarterbacks, if not the greatest quarterback ever. He's the most winningest quarterback ever. He's won the most Super Bowls. Yeah, sometime know your place.
And he had the most to prove, right? This is a guy, he was picked, 144 or something like that in the draft?
Yeah.
So
199.
So it's even worse. So
why do I remember that?
Yeah, I don't know. You have some obscure memory over there. But no, it's one of those things. I think you have to look at Brady. Yes, does he do well? Is Bruce Arians letting him coach? Is he an emotional guy? Do I think he elevates guys? Yes, but it's not like he didn't go down there and they didn't have or bring in weapons for him, right? They go and get the guy that they know he has a solid connection with, who they pulled him out of retirement for it. They go and get a guy in Antonio Brown, who in the time that he played was a factor there. And in the one game that he played, we saw the connection. And then the side of...
So funny, Nick.
That was funny. Do you remember that from the draft where he had his dog sitting at the laptop?
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Anyways.
That's great.
But you have that, and then the fact that Godwin was already there, Evans was already there. So these were already names that we knew were performing at a high level. So it's not like he went in and took a guy and elevated him, to another level. These guys were already, number one, number two. They just needed somebody that could throw him the ball consistently.
Right.
I'm not saying I'm rooting for Tom Brady, but if I'm Bills Mafia right now. I'm rooting for Bills Mafia to take it down. But if it's a Bills-Bucks Super Bowl, I'm happy either way. I'm just going to enjoy watching that game. It's going to be a fun storyline and answer some questions on both sides of it. I like it.
All right. I like it.
No rules. No boundaries. 2 topics. 30 seconds each. It's time for the 2-minute warning.
All right, Scott, it's time for the 2-minute warning. We're keeping this show Ravens only. I mean, that's kind of been the theme of the night. Our therapy session 2.0.
Yeah.
Hopefully we helped some of you out. Hopefully we didn't stress you out even more than you already been stressed.
Yes, Alex, that's one of the reasons we're keeping it Ravens only, because Terps did get that ass beat by Michigan.
They did.
We can talk about that in the after hours.
All right, Ryan, are you reading off the 2-minute warning questions?
Sure, why not? I got them right here. Question 1. Now that the Ravens season is over, what are your plus and negatives of this team?
So I think the plus is we saw the leap made by Lamar in some of his game. I think we saw the Hollywood, as much as we joke and we call him the Riddler because there were a lot of question marks. We're seeing progression out of a lot of these guys, out of the young guys, which has been great. The negatives, I hate to harp on it, but I mean, the scheming and the play calling has been atrocious at times, and something's got to change. Whether it's the scheme or the guy calling them, yet to be known.
Yeah, I think this team showed and proved that they can handle adversity, that they could be at a position at 6-5 in the middle of the year, dealing with COVID outbreak and not sure if they were even going to be in consideration for a playoff shot, to run 5 off and win and get into the playoffs, get that monkey off your back, and actually, win a big game, win that first round against the Titans. Your nemesis was good, and I agree with you with everything with the play calling and the scheming. I think that needs to change in order for this to improve.
With Lamar's rookie deal end date looming, should they pursue a deal this offseason or later?
Is this really a question?
Sure.
Is it really a question? That's my question. It's rhetorical. But yes, you go and you get him now. Because if he comes out and lights the freaking world on fire next year and becomes this top tier passing and running, and he is a true dual threat that you can get the deep ball, you can get the guy over the middle, and you can run the ball, you're not going to be able to afford him at that point.
Nah, I think you hold pat right now. Save the allocation of the money that you're going to have this year and use it for other things to go all in, quote unquote, and really try to go after Super Bowl this year. I think Lamar is going to get paid $40-something million a year, regardless if it's this year or next year, regardless of what happens. Only way he gets paid even more is if he has another MVP year, ends up winning a Super Bowl. I'm not sure that that's going to happen next year, so we'll see. I don't think this year is the right move for the squad. All right, Scott, good show. Hopefully next week we can kind of, take another week back and a deep breath and digest even more of this stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be more news that comes out this coming week. Hopefully next week you and Ryan, will be over your long-ass hangover and be having a shot and enjoying the brew of the week with us.
It's been a rough couple days.
But we appreciate each of you guys tuning in each week. We love doing this. We love these engaging sessions. We love the comments. Keep flying in. I know they've been flying in all night. Stay tuned for the after hours. We're going to continue to get to your questions and thoughts that come up. Make sure you check out our website, www.birdlandbs.com. While you're there, you can check out all of our episodes. Check out the Shell and Tell podcast. I know that you guys got some exciting guests lined up for the future, so stay tuned for those. Make sure you also check us out on the Big Play Network and birdlandsports.com. Also, while you're on our website, make sure you go get the gear. I'm wearing it. Ryan, I know Ryan's camera isn't working. He was wearing the Shell and Tell last week. He's wearing it again this week. Go support the causes. We appreciate you guys each and every week tuning in. Make sure you follow us on all of our social media pages. At Birdland BS is how you find us. All of our handles are always on the show right below the guys that are talking. So we appreciate you guys going and following, liking, subscribing to everything that we're doing. If you want your opinion heard on the show, make sure you're commenting. Send us those send us those messages on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. We will bring them up on the show as we have with Craig Zero and some of the other people tonight. As always, the audio version of the podcast, Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen, go check it out. Make sure you leave it there.
Living legend, I love it.
I got Birdland mask on now. I love it, man. Love it. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see you next week, 7:30 Eastern Standard Time on all the normal social media platforms. For Fred, Ryan, James, Drew, and myself, we'll see you guys.
See ya. It's time for the after party.
Ish lash call for alcohol.
Ryan with the premature button elation over
So
there.
this button wasn't pushed, and that's why they couldn't hear it. Because theirs is set to a different setting than ours is.
Oh, okay.
We haven't heard any of your sound effects all whole show.
Oh, really? I had no idea.
Now they're on mute.
I had no idea they weren't hearing it.
We just heard the 2 minutes.
Whatever.
It is what it is. All right. So this has been a fun show. The interaction has been through the roof. I know we still have like 30-some people watching in the after hours.
Joseph says, first time here, good time with y'all. Hey, man, appreciate you tuning in. If you got any other questions, hey, if you guys have questions that we haven't answered yet, any topics, get them in now. We'll try
after hours.
We'll try to get as many of them as we can. Go ahead,
We only
Ryan.
started with like 65 people. We held 35 through the end of the show. That's pretty impressive. Like, I know there was different people in and out, but
everybody
it's
needed
good.
their therapy.
Yeah.
They just needed to
need
hear
your
their
therapy and get out. Thomas said,
Couch is full.
I think he was talking about the Lamar contract.
Yeah.
He said, I'd offer him a fully guaranteed contract in exchange for lowering the annual cost. I think after I kind of thought about it and hearing your take on it, the one thing I think about is he still technically is under his rookie contract.
That's what I'm saying. You can get one more year of being able to bring in some extra help.
Yes. the only thing is if you could work out the contract to where the hit isn't as hard in these first few years.
Backload it. That got the Ravens into a lot of trouble over years. You don't want to do that. Like that was Ozzie Newsome's approach.
Yeah. Or you do this thing where you like double these last 2 years of his rookie contract and then give decent guaranteed money for the next 3 years, and it'll only be a short-term extension.
The thing that you guys aren't thinking about, though, is the cap more than likely is going down this year.
They're thinking it's still
they keep saying that.
They've pretty much confirmed it. It's going down. They just don't know how much yet. They haven't announced what the figures are going to be, but the estimated right now, like I said,
kiss my ass because the goddamn ratings through the TV are through the fucking roof. You're making the fucking money.
I heard that it's going to be around 180.
Yeah, 175 to 180 is what I'm hearing.
And what is it now?
I forget.
It's under 200, isn't it?
Let me tell you.
It's like 195 maybe.
With NBA printing cash and giving it to everything, if the NFL wants to start messing with its youngins going into football, you should cut this cap right now. Because the NBA is printing money. You're going to say all your talent stay in basketball.
NBA and NFL
But they have a cap too,
compare.
but it's different. You only have, 20 players on the NBA?
15 to 20 players.
True, but the cap's going up every year, no matter what's happening.
That's because they got that Gatorade money.
NFL can get Gatorade money.
Dominic says, would y'all cut Harbs for Eric Bieniemy? Harbs.
See? That's
Harbs.
So Dominic tuned in right after our conversation because I saw him come and ask questions that we got into.
Yeah, so I wouldn't cut Harbs for Eric Bieniemy, but Ryan had brought up a great point earlier and said, listen, Eric Bieniemy is kind of living in the shadows of Andy Reid because Andy Reid gets all the credit for the play calling there. And would Eric Bieniemy, because he's not getting a head coaching job elsewhere, want to go to a new environment and prove himself that he can get out and do something better with a team outside of Andy Reid? And what a perfect opportunity it would be in Baltimore to take the number 32 ranked passing offense and make them relevant, make them a top 15. Could you imagine how much different this offense would be if they were just a top 15 passing team in this league, going from 32nd to top 15.
Top 20 even, I would even say.
That's what I'm saying. So 100% I would take Eric Bieniemy over a Greg Roman, not Harbs. I'm not ready to throw the towel on Harbs.
The only thing I see is that Eric Bieniemy could have this like coach in waiting mentality at Kansas City with this 10-year deal of Mahomes sitting there. But how many years have we been hearing that in New England, that we've had these coaches in waiting that are going to wait for Belichick to sit out? If Andy Reid just doesn't want to stop coaching, they're just going to let him keep coaching.
But how many of those coaches also have turned around and gotten deals?
And then turned right back to the Patriots.
Right? So it's one of those things. I don't know. I'm on the fence as far as, Harbs. I do think Harbs needs to start taking more responsibility for things, but it's just not always there as far as I'm concerned.
So Craig Zero says, what up, Craig? Appreciate you tuning in as always. What is first, Allen Robinson coming to us or Giro out of the Ravens?
Both. At the same exact
It's both at the same exact time.
If Allen Robinson says I'm not coming there with Greg Roman, it could happen at the exact same time.
If Allen Robinson, if you get Allen Robinson,
Allen Robinson is the gem that every Ravens fan wants, including all 5 of us sitting in here right now. Or 4 of us sitting in here. No.
There's 5.
There's 5 of us. Are you still drunk?
Yeah, apparently. But there's going to be a handful of other teams out there that are going to have better cap space and that are going to want him just as much as we do. So I think it's more likely that Giro would be gone first before we get Allen Robinson. But I don't think either happens this year. I don't think we end up getting Allen Robinson because of the money that it's going to cost. And I still think Giro will be here in 2021.
Yeah.
They already announced that the Eagles ownership already said Wentz is their guy.
Yeah.
So whoever's going to take this job is saying that Wentz is going to be our guy.
Yeah.
So is
that he's going to be sold on Wentz too.
Shipped out. So who drafted this guy?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that the thing that I would say too with that situation, if Allen Robinson comes, if you can pull off an Allen Robinson deal, then yes, I think that goes back to your point. If you get a number 1 receiver, all right, fine. You're on the hook. Giro.
Your lease is tight.
Yeah, you got it tight. If you start fucking up, you can't get this offense with a number 1 guy, you're done. Right? Yeah. That's the only way that I think he goes on. So I think it would be the way to get Greg Roman out. But I don't know. I think the deal could happen. If you're asking me which one's going to happen first, I think it would be Greg Roman gone over Allen Robinson, but who knows? Right. I did see a good question up there that was because we really didn't talk about it. We mentioned Breeze. Is Breeze back?
Hell no.
I think he's done.
I think he's done. And one thing that did piss me off, I don't know if you guys actually watched that game. One thing that pissed me off at the end when he's going into the tunnel, very clear he is looking up into a box at his family.
Yeah.
Blowing kisses. What are they doing in the media? Oh, he was telling the fans goodbye. Shut the fuck up. He was waving and giving kisses to his kids and wife.
There weren't any fans in the stands there, were there?
Yeah,
no, there were.
There were fans at that game?
There were
Okay.
fans.
I knew there was one game there weren't any
first
fans.
responder and like nurses and all that.
And some of like the family and friends were allowed, yeah.
So I'm guessing they weren't trying to show that his family was chilling there for that last game.
Oh, well, they showed like one shot during like the second
He does
or third
that
quarter.
every game he walks off, though. This isn't anything out of the ordinary. The only thing that was
It was the storyline that they were trying to embellish.
The only thing that was made for movie was like him as he's going into the tunnel. He turns around and makes one look back at the field, and then he walks.
The only thing made for a movie was that it was Brady and Breeze for the last game.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing,
and then Brady's throwing touchdown passes to his son after the game, wearing whatever the hell
hey
clothes
kid,
he
go
wears.
to the corner.
Yeah.
Great catch. I'll see you in 5 years.
No, but
God, I wish I could be that rich to just like not have a care in the world that I just lost the game and have the guy that beat me throwing touchdown passes to my kid. I would love to have that.
It's a brotherhood, man.
I was to say that's not a
I
care.
know.
That's not a care in the world. It's money. That's a
Ten.
respect for the game itself, which both of these guys. Everybody made
Both of them have
everything
defied
Brady.
the odds, man. Have played, Breeze is now into his 40s, right? Or he's 40.
He's 42.
Or he's 42. All right.
Because Brady's 43. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. These guys have defied the odds, and I'm sure they've got nothing but the utmost respect for each other.
And I like the clip of Breeze apparently saying, "Winston, this is your team now."
Yeah. So Craig brings up the
yeah.
point we talked about earlier. Dez and other players are calling out G-Row on Twitter and Instagram. This goes back to what I was saying earlier with guys releasing practice videos and whatnot of Dez catching balls and those 50-50 balls in the red zone. We talked about Dez when we brought him here was where could he have the most impact? And it was going to be in the red zone. It was going to be that big body target.
Contested balls.
In the end zone, contested jump balls, and we just did not see them use him in that way at all.
I got a question real quick. With these release videos,
frustrating.
Do they get it on their iPads and then they decide to release it?
Yeah.
So they film. Someone films it, puts it on the iPad. They can watch whatever they decide.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they have like an internal program that they have access to on their iPads that they can fast forward, rewind, check plays out, and dissect what they're doing or doing wrong.
The thing that comes into it here is all this happens at the end of the season, so you're not affecting their. I don't know how we'd have to ask Jobeth on what contract, what potential contract situation could that be? Could there be penalties for guys that are doing that? It is after the season's over. I don't know.
It's super ballsy for Dez to be doing it because you're not comfortably safe in this league right now. You just got left out in the wind for a year and a half. Why would you be the one doing it?
I think he was just trying to.
You're trying to show
he was trying to showcase that he still got something left
because
in
he
the
didn't
tank.
get the chance to do it. They signed.
Right.
It's so stupid to me, and you're the one that said this, and I thought you hit the nail on the head. You signed this guy. We put him on the practice squad deal. We brought him up twice, barely used him while he was up twice, and then you made the decision to say we're going to give you the vet minimum deal that we have to give you. You give it to him, and you don't even fucking use him except for the 2 touchdowns that we saw.
Yeah,
that's it. I think we saw
and they were
one
more
catch
like
that
charity
was
touchdowns. It wasn't like
the one Lamar got out there and then he made that catch.
Yeah,
Dez made that touchdown, but you didn't use him in any situation.
Forced. It felt like they were just trying to get him involved. Like it wasn't like he had been out there and he had caught 4 or 5 passes and worked his way into the offense. It was more of an integral part. He never felt like he was an integral part of this offense.
No.
And I'm not saying that they signed him to be an integral part, but where you would think he'd have the most impact, again, would be on those 3rd down conversions, the red zone opportunities. They just didn't use them.
Thomas, I'd love to be a fly on the wall in meetings between Cully and Roman. Cully had all that experience with Andy Reid, but the Ravens' passing games look totally inept. And that's what I was alluding to before. I don't know. David Culley could be the guy. It could also be James Urban. that is your quarterback's coach that has been able to work with Lamar. Does he maybe need to work with him on vision and finding the guy, or is it Greg Roman doing the play calling and not putting Dez out there in the first place?
Right.
I don't know, but you got to recognize.
That's why I say I really think Greg Roman will be Cam Cameron in 2021. Yeah. I think he will start the season as the coordinator. If he does not show improvement, he will be let go 4 games in, 5 games in, 6 games in, and he will be replaced by one of those guys, Cully or Urban.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I would say is I think there is validity to James' thought process when it comes to Harbaugh, meaning that Harbaugh needs to start taking the heat for, we're sitting here talking about Roman. What about Harbaugh giving Roman too much of a leash and not going, look, dude, you need to get your shit together. We need to do this. Did maybe he do that in the second half of the season? Maybe. But why did he need to have to do that in the first place?
Right.
Why?
Yeah.
It's because the leash is too long on Greg Roman, and I think the leash has been too long on a lot of coordinators in the past.
That's one of the things I will say with Harbaugh is he is loyal to a fault in a lot of ways. And I will say that about Harbaugh. But, at some point, like you said, the seat's going to get kind of warm on Harbaugh too. If Bisciotti starts to look at it like, hey,
what was it?
This guy's not producing. You're not coming to me saying that, hey, we need to replace this guy. I need to start looking at you. So that's what I'm saying.
2 years ago, that was a question.
That is not happening right now. But again, if we get into next year and things don't improve.
Well, 2 years ago, we heard Bisciotti come out and say that, like, look, we need to do what it takes. And right now, that's not a question. John Harbaugh is our coach, but he made it clear that there needed to be improvements over the losing seasons that we had. And Harbaugh made it happen, but how much of that was people not knowing what the fuck to do to handle Lamar Jackson?
Right.
How much of that can be attributed to Lamar Jackson and what he brings to the table as a natural athlete versus John Harbaugh's coaching abilities?
Right.
Oh, I'm telling you this. Next year, the pilot's lit on Harbaugh's. Like, they're lighting the pilot, and either it's going to be fully lit or it's going to be burnt out. And I honestly think this is his last year. We're talking about Mike Tomlin's. People are saying they're letting the team go and all that. So this could be it too. And then second off, did you guys know who Gus Edwards' agent is?
His agent?
Is it Jobeth?
No.
Shout out to Jobeth.
Is it a baseball guy?
No, it's our favorite. The favorite.
Rosenhaus?
Yeah, Drew Rosenhaus. Yep. Yeah, I couldn't think of his name.
So he's going to get paid.
He's going to get paid.
By
regardless.
the Jets.
Probably.
Hey, they
Probably.
can go and have an okay
Any other good questions out there, Ryan?
It's falling apart here, but I'm seeing a lot of things on Twitter. Apparently, they're going after EDC's wife, telling him everything.
Oh, yeah, that happened earlier.
So much.
Yeah, there's been so much ridiculous shit happening on Twitter this year that's come from the Ravens flock that is just mind-boggling to me. Matt Skura's wife was attacked, remember, in the middle of the year with like death threats and all kinds of shit when he had the bad snaps in that game. Yeah. Now Eric DaCosta's wife is on, and she's great. She's a great follow on Twitter.
Oh yeah,
she's a very well-educated fan. Like, she comes across as a fan just like anybody else would. And there's so many people out there that just continually attack her and, oh, well, can you ask Eric to do this? Can you ask? She's like, he's not going to listen to me. Like, he's his own guy.
Here's the other thing I'm going to say to you, Nick. Nick's saying EDC should also be held accountable if we don't get further. Here's my one statement to that. EDC can get all the guys that he wants. And this comes back to that statement that we talked about. It's very easy for a GM to go, I built the team, and he's not playing it. If you've ever watched, Draft Day, right? We've all seen Draft Day. It's all about, is the coach wanting to do what I'm trying to build, what my vision is? Are you bought into the vision? I don't know if I can say that with Harbs and EDC. I don't know, but I don't.
Did you see the embrace that they had before the Tennessee game? when they hugged and they were both like,
didn't.
this is why we built this team this way. Like, this is what we built this team for. So I think they both are on the same
They're
page.
on the same page. Okay, fair enough. But at the same time, like, that's EDC can only do so much, right? He's putting stuff. So here's what I'm going to say, right? If you're going to make that kind of statement, is it Ozzie Newsome's fault for our losing season several years in a row? My answer is no, but my point is if you're going to make a statement like that about a guy that goes and gets these dumpster dive guys that are productive and put us in a position to get to where we did, yes, it was not the end goal. We didn't finish, but we got further than we did the year before, right? Craig says, watch Moneyball. Same situation. Yeah, you're right. But that's what it comes down to. If you're going to make a statement like that, Nick, you got to also say that you better be willing to back the statement that you think that Ozzie is responsible and needs to answer for the losing seasons, even though I don't agree with that. Right. But if we're comparing apples to apples, that's apples to apples.
All right, guys. Well, we appreciate you tuning in. We'll be back next Tuesday, as always. I don't know what we're going to talk about, but we got a week to figure it out. We'll see you guys next week.
See ya.
See ya.